Yo, what's good, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of the Shooter Straight Podcast. It's your co-host Zach,
I'm your co-host G.
and welcome back to episode 29 of the Shooter Straight Podcast. First and foremost, we just wanted to thank y'all for all the support we've been getting on other previous episodes, including episode 28. All of the support we've been getting on social media platforms such as Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Reels, all that. Those platforms we've been doing good on. We appreciate the continued support. We're gonna continue to run it up.
Absolutely. We love to see you guys' engagement. We see every comment. We respond to every comment. We want to see what you guys have to think about all the topics we touch upon on this episode. So all the links to our social medias down in the description. And while you're down there, hit the subscribe button. It's right there. It's free. So I mean, come on. It's right there. Might as well.
Exactly. We're at 337 subscribers right now. We're on the road to 1,000. We appreciate all the support we've been getting. We're going to continue to try to run it up.
Yeah. And without further ado, big games have been happening. World Cup's in full swing. And we had a couple shockers and a couple great games to talk about.
Oh, man. Shockers is an understatement. I mean, without further ado, let's just go ahead and get straight into the biggest shock, arguably in World Cup history. People are saying this is the biggest upset in World Cup history. Argentina versus Saudi Arabia. Everyone and every football fan pretty much was waking up at 5 a.m., if you're in the States, to watch this game, myself included. And to say I was disappointed is an understatement, but I'll get into my thoughts on it. I'm gonna go ahead and pass this one off to you first. You took in the game same way I did. What is your initial reaction to Saudi Arabia being able to beat Argentina?
I had to wake up at 5 a.m. to watch that performance by Argentina. They came out and they just looked completely out of it. They looked like they didn't show up at all. They looked anxious. They looked nervous. They were just jumping the line way too quickly. Got called by 8 offsides about during that entire game, probably 8 more. And it was just to the fact that even though Argentina didn't play absolutely horribly, the first half they played fairly well. They controlled Saudi Arabia, and they had a lot of clear-cut chances that they just couldn't finish. They got unlucky. Like this through the first half and through the entire game, they had 70% possession, 15 shots, 6 on target to Saudi Arabia's 3 shots, 2 on target, and the passes. Argentina had 596 complete to Saudi Arabia's 266. If I read you that stat line without the score, you would say that's a comfortable win for Argentina. That was just not the case. This is a bit of a microcosm to me because I don't think this is really what Argentina's about. That, they came out the second half and they just looked like they were napping. They looked horrible. They got beat to every tackle. They got out physicaled. They didn't have the physicality to keep up with the Saudi players in the second half. And that's what led to them getting conceded by 2 goals in 5 minutes. That's not like Argentina to give up 2 goals in 5 minutes. Especially one was a screamer, to be fair. One was a very, very great goal. But it's uncharacteristic. And for the rest of the game, they just looked like they couldn't find their rhythm. And you have to be fair. You have to give the Saudis credit. They had a great defensive setup. They're playing a 4-4-1-1, and just how they were coached. They're well defended. But let's not act like Saudis this all-time great defensive team. Argentina controlled this game very well. It's just one of those things where I believe they beat Saudi 9 out of 10 times, but this was that one time. Yeah. And to take it back to, because we had them as our pick, and I'm not backing down as they're my pick to win. I still think they're going to win it all. I think they had to lose a game. They're on a 36-game unbeaten streak. That's never going to last forever. They're going to have to lose. And I would rather them have lost this game than lose it later on when it matters. So It's good that they got this loss already off. They don't got to worry about carrying on this unbeaten, carrying on all the longest record of unbeaten in national team history. Who gives a shit? Now they're going to come back. They're going to understand that they have to play better, and they got to start out strong, and they got to hold their runs by just a second. They hold their runs just by a second. They score 4. And then this is not a conversation. No one's talking about, are Argentina going to make out the group and, all this nonsense and stuff. But, to take it back to even Spain in 2010, when they won the World Cup, they lost their first opening game to Switzerland. And not even talking about when Argentina won their first World Cup, or Maradona, they lost their opening match game too. It's not unheard of that this happens. It's just recency bias that Argentina are one of the favorites and they happen to lose to Saudi Arabia, and people are like, oh, who the hell is Saudi Arabia? They're a good little side, but this all comes down to the fact that it's Argentina, that it's Messi. Oh, Messi lost, but from the looks of the rest of the group, Poland and Mexico, they don't look like world beaters, and I think Argentina are just going to run the table. They're going to win. They're going to beat them both, and they're going to finish top of the group still. And I don't have them losing another game. It's just one of those things that they were going to lose one game, and I'd rather it be this one than any other one.
100%.
And
I
know,
would just say, well,
yeah, I know you had a similar thoughts there, but what were your initial reactions after watching that game?
100%. Before I get into Argentina, which is obviously the big storyline because they're the big favorites, and I picked them to win the World Cup, so did you as well. I would just like to give Saudi Arabia their flowers because it was a masterclass performance. First and foremost, Hervé Renard, the manager, he has transformed the Saudi team and in a way that nobody ever expected. Obviously, he has pedigree in international football, winning 2 African Cup of Nations trophies with Zambia and the Ivory Coast. So obviously, he has championship pedigree, and he has the ability to win cup matches in a one-off game, especially against quality opponents, because the AFCON is one of the most competitive tournaments, especially in the international play. Also, he was able to take Morocco to their first World Cup when he was manager for them. Now he's transformed this Saudi team, and he had an absolute tactical masterclass today of the highest degree. He showed off how to execute the offside trap better than any other instance that I've seen in recent memory. It was an absolute bold play to do that, especially given how Argentina play, and it was just such a bold move to do that, given you're going to let Argentina have the ball most of the time, and you're going to play a really, really high line, which is risky. You're going to let Argentina get in behind, and you're going to let them let them run in behind and hope that the offside gets called, and obviously there was a few questionable ones there, which I'll get into in a second, but ultimately it was an absolute tactical masterclass. He has these players playing amazingly, and to be fair, I think Saudi Arabia could make it out of the group now. It's not crazy for that to be said. I think given how we saw Poland and Mexico play, I think Saudi might be the second best team in this group. Genuinely, they because the way that they play.
I said it after,
I don't think it's crazy to say
after the Poland and Mexico game. I think Saudi could beat Mexico. I mean, I think
I
Saudi could beat Poland.
I think they could as well. It's not crazy to say that, and that's full credit to Hervé Renard for being able to do that. Obviously, they did score a screamer, but it was the exact opposite happened that what I expected. Obviously, Argentina go in at halftime up 1-0, and I texted this to you. I said, okay, I expect Argentina to come out of halftime, and they're going to put their foot on the gas, and they're going to take the game by the scruff of the neck, and it's going to be over. The exact opposite happened. They came out, they were complacent. Yeah. Saudi Arabia came out. I don't know what this guy told them at the halftime team talk, but my God, they came out looking like Pele and R9. They all came back. They're all freaking playing for Saudi now. Dude, it was unbelievable.
The physicality that they had, they were just bullying Argentina's defense and midfield, and I think that was the biggest problem with Argentina, that they played a 4-2-3-1. I didn't really like it just because of the fact that their midfield, they weren't really playing through the midfield. There was a lot of playing with the right backs and left backs and just swinging out to Di Maria, swinging out to Papu Gomez. Like it can work, and I think some of the best play came from that wing, having Di Maria coming in there. But the fact that that is the only play they really had, and they couldn't really play through the middle because the Saudis were so physical in the midfield and in the defense. And when it came to the second half, they just bullied them off the ball and got shots off. And when you look at the stats, it's just like, well, shit, they were just way more clinical, like 3 shots and 2 on target. Like that happens to you, you just like, well, what the hell? It's just like they couldn't miss. And they were not easy chances. Like, they were hard chances to score and to finish. And it just comes down to the fact that
finish, and obviously the second one was
great
screamer.
Finish, and then the second one was screamer. And Argentina had a 5-minute stretch where they got caught, and that was it. They were bad for 5 minutes, and Saudi were able to capitalize.
100%. It's one of those things. lapse of concentration in the World Cup, it can cost you. And that's what happened to Argentina today. Ultimately, it was, and call me crazy, I was thinking this at the time. I still kind of believe this. I think when you're a team like Argentina and you're playing a team that is quote unquote worse than you, and you know that they're going to set up counterattack, in a way that, I don't think anyone expected Saudi to play exactly how they played with this high line offside trap. But to a certain extent, they were putting everyone behind the ball. And that's how you're going to have to break us down that way. I will
Hmm.
just go ahead and say that is significantly harder, even though that the talent wise it's very discrepant. I would just say it's very hard to break down 11 guys behind the ball. I don't think going forward for Argentina that Poland and Mexico are going to play quite as deep. They're going to want to come out and play their style of football with Argentina, which caters more to Argentina's skill set. When you're going to
Hmm.
just play a deep block and you're just going to let Argentina pass around the back to a certain extent, because it's kind of all they were able to do, pass
Yeah,
sideways and go
yeah,
backwards. When that's all you can do, it's tough. And you couldn't even do it with the greatest playmaker of all time, Lionel Messi. Obviously, it's not looking good. I would just say when teams come out to play a little bit more, when they play higher quality teams per se that have a little bit more skill, or at least on paper, they're gonna play a little bit more attacking football, which is going to open up more lanes for Argentina, which is going to make it a little bit easier for them to play in between the lines, which is obviously where Messi likes to pick up the ball. It's where Messi wants to have the ball, and then playing those through passes to Di Maria, playing those passes to Lautaro Martinez.
Lautaro Martinez.
We just had to see Argentina play a very direct style, pretty much playing long balls from the center backs through on goal, because that's all they could do,
Yeah,
because the line was so
they
pinched
couldn't get
up.
it through the mid.
They couldn't
Yeah,
get through the middle because of how they played, and it was that's football at the end of the day. That is why anyone can beat
that's why we
anyone. It was
watch.
great. It was great tactics. Obviously, it's that's not an excuse for Argentina. They still needed to win this game. I don't care what tactics are being played. I don't care if they're playing 11 men behind the ball. You have the greatest player of all time, in my opinion. I picked them to win the World Cup. They have to win this game. So it's not an excuse. I will just say when they play Poland and when they play Mexico next, that those teams are going to come out to play a little bit more. They're going to want to attack. They're going to want to score goals more so than than Saudi Arabia, who are just kind of playing on the
Hmm.
counter. They weren't looking to get anything out of that game realistically, and it just so happened that they were able to. That's
Yeah,
why, for the most part, I agree. I'm with you. I'm not too worried about Argentina. I think that this was the wake up call that they needed. I'm glad it came now. We've seen it in the past, like you mentioned, Spain and Argentina back in 1980. They lost their opening game. They were able to go on. Obviously, maybe they didn't quite lose to teams on paper as bad as Saudi Arabia, but I think Saudi Arabia are just better than what we all gave them credit for. At the end of the day, they're a very
yeah,
underrated team, and they've proven themselves now. Argentina, all things considered, they won this game on expected goals 2.26 to 0.15. That's a complete and utter domination. I mean,
yeah.
they had 0.15 expected goals. I mean, that's pretty much you're scoring the most difficult goals you could possibly score. They scored two of them. Two goals on 0.15 XG is absolutely unbelievable for Saudi Arabia. It's what it takes to beat a team like Argentina. And not every game is going to go like that. You're not going to score screamers every game. DePaul is
Hmm.
not going to play as terrible as he played this game. You know, there
Did
was
not play
just
good. Yeah,
there was just a couple players, DePaul included, that they were nervous. You could just tell they weren't quite
a
in
little
the right
anxious. Yeah,
mindset. It was the jitters needed to get out. And obviously now there's going to be maybe even more pressure on this next game coming up against Mexico, but I think that they're going to be able to respond. And this was just a wake up call that they needed. That's why I can't really be too worried, because ultimately, not to make an excuse, but we've seen ultimately now in the replay after the fact, Lautaro Martinez's second goal that was ruled offside, it should have counted. The VAR ultimately, it wouldn't have. We don't know how it would have changed the landscape of the game, but Argentina would have went up 2-0. Lautaro Martinez's goal gets ruled off for offsides, and on the replay that they showed, he was offside. But it's come out now that VAR did not take into account the Saudi Arabia left back, which kept him on sides. It's
yeah,
one of those things. You can give your opinion on VAR, but I just think in terms of how that relates to Argentina, they were a little bit unlucky. Saudi Arabia had a masterclass. I'm not worried about Argentina. Pump the brakes. They're making it out of the group. Let's not get carried away here. I know, because it's Lionel Messi, because he's, one of the most talked about footballers of all time, which also makes you one of the most scrutinized footballers of all time. Everyone wants to laugh at him. Everyone wants to say Argentina aren't making it out of the group. They're overrated. They're this, they're that. Pump the brakes. Argentina will be okay.
Yeah. And even going back to like the whole, there's a whole mental side of the fact that Lautaro Martinez going through and scoring. It's hard to get over that hump. It's like you're creating all these chances, you're scoring, but they're getting called back. They're every single one's getting called back. And as a player, you're doing this and you're thinking, what 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 do we have to do? It's already hard enough to break down this team that's literally 11 people behind the ball, and when we do, we're offside every single
Yeah.
time. And I think that had to do with a little bit of them just being anxious. They're jumping the lines a little bit too quickly. And I think that's something they will adjust. I thought they'd adjust by halftime, but they needed they
Clearly they
needed
couldn't.
this game. They did not, but I think this is a game they needed to, fully readjust and get back, and just see
Yeah.
what they have to do to get better.
Yeah, and ultimately, I believe that they're going to be fine. They're going to be able to do that. You know, what gives me the most hope is that Poland and Mexico, neither of them convinced me and won me over, saying that, oh my God, these teams, ooh, they're the ones. They're the ones that are going to finish off
Yeah.
Argentina. We could have said
Uh,
the same thing about Saudi Arabia, but at the end of the day, Lewandowski wasn't
I
convincing
think he had
today at
like
all.
he had one touch in the
What
box.
we'll get into our exact thoughts on Mexico and Poland, but it is ultimately one of those things. Unless you have anything to say about this match, I'd like to look forward to their next match against Mexico and just get your thoughts on if you think that. Well, I think I know the answer to this, but will
Yeah,
Argentina be able to rebound, and will they be able to get the win against Mexico?
absolutely. I think they're gonna come out, and they're gonna come out with a little bit more, a little bit more front step. They're gonna come out stronger. You're not gonna see as much, them sleeping as we did this game against Saudi Arabia in the second half. And I think they're gonna win this game pretty comfortably. I think I have it 2-0, and I think Lautaro Martinez gets on the scoreboard. He actually scores a goal this time, and that's not offside. And they get their journey back on track, because I
Yeah.
mean, even Messi after an interview, he urged the fans to stay calm. We got this. This is something they know, that they know they're not invincible. They're gonna lose a game, but
Hmm.
he's just saying, steady the ship. This is gonna be all right. We're gonna figure this out. And I
Yeah.
trust him. I'm gonna
No,
trust Messi. I'm thinking
I
same thing. I'm
trust
gonna
them.
trust Messi.
I trust them as well. I think Argentina are going to be able to rebound, and I think they're going to be able to take care of business against Mexico. Like for the reasons that I said earlier, Mexico are not going to play the same style of football that Saudi Arabia tactically masterclassed against Argentina
They're gonna
today.
be open to counter. Yeah.
They're going to be open. It's going to be a more attacking game. It's going to be a great game to watch. I feel like, because if I took away anything from Mexico against Poland, which we'll get into, Mexico, they're going to come out to play. They're going to try to be a little bit more attacking. That's going to suit Argentina more so than how Saudi Arabia played. Ultimately, Argentina, they just have more quality than Mexico. Mexico are not going to be able to keep quite up with that attacking style of Argentina. The attacking options for Argentina are just better than Mexico at the end of the day. And I think that's going to be able to carry them forward. I would say, though, it is slightly going to be concerning, based on how this lineup potentially changes for Argentina, because, you hinted that you would like to see a formation change. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. I think it's a possibility,
Yeah,
but
I don't think it's gonna happen either.
I would just say, I do think Otamendi should not be starting in this team. Lisandro Martinez should be starting the next game. And it's just my opinion. I think Lisandro Martinez is a better center back. And, it was interesting to me because they ended up subbing on Lisandro Martinez, but they subbed off Romero and to get on Martinez. For some reason, this guy loves Otamendi. What has Otamendi done
Like,
to deserve
he
this
likes the
spot? I
veterans. He
don't
likes
quite
the
understand.
veterans. He's a
I
veteran
don't
of the
quite
game.
understand. Otamendi is not that guy. I'm not putting the loss on him by any stretch of the imagination. But Otamendi is not that guy. Lisandro Martinez is a significantly better player. I would like to see him starting. Ultimately, I don't think, besides that, I don't think, benching DePaul would be a good move by any stretch of the
Yeah,
imagination.
absolutely not. No.
Uh, obviously he played bad, but, you were able to give him an opportunity to recover. He's never, I don't think
Yeah,
I've ever seen him play that bad before for Argentina. It was just first game
it was
jitters.
real bad.
We were giving our flowers to DePaul, saying how great he always plays for Argentina, and then this is how he comes out and plays. It's like
This is how he
he's not going to
rewards
do
us,
that
man.
bad. Argentina
Yeah,
as a whole are not going to do that bad, and I expect Messi to come out and be the Messi that we all know. At the end of the day, I think
Yeah.
I expect a couple goal contributions at the very least against Mexico.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah. But I mean, finishing on that one into the another game that grabbed a lot of headlines, the opener, which was Qatar versus Ecuador. This is the first time we've ever seen Qatar in a World Cup.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to get your early reactions. I had a couple tweets that I had out. I may have not been very happy with Qatar, but I'll get in that after you give your take on it.
Yeah. Look, you can have your opinions about Qatar. Should they be even in the World Cup? Should they have been hosting the World Cup? Do you respect them as a country or whatever? That's neither here nor there. I'll leave that for up for debate. In terms of what we saw on the pitch against Ecuador, my general consensus, and I think everyone was, Qatar is not good at all. They are not a good team. This team is not good. To be fair, I don't think that they would ever have qualified for a World Cup if they weren't a host country. So, I guess that's good for them that they get the opportunity. I don't see much from this team, considering the fact that they stopped their league play and they've been training for this as a team for so long to prepare for the World Cup. And this is what we got? You've been
This is
training
what we
for, I
got.
don't know, was it 6 months or something like that? So that you could be a cohesive unit and prove yourself in the World Cup. And this was the showing that we got. It was an absolutely despicable performance. I mean, Ecuador come out, and let's not look. I give Ecuador credit for how they were able to come out in this game, but let's not act like Ecuador is a bunch of world beaters by any stretch of the imagination. And they came out 3 minutes
They're
in, and
they're
they were
they're
looking
bottom
like,
5 ranked in the entire tournament.
that's what I'm saying. Ecuador is not. They're not bad, but they're not the best team in the world. And Ecuador came out, and it looked like they had R9 Ronaldo on the pitch. Enter Valencia has turned into prime R9. It was
He almost
absolutely
had a perfect
unbelievable.
hat trick. He almost had a
I,
perfect hat trick.
and to be fair, he probably should have, based on what we saw. I was just about to touch on that. After that first Enter Valencia goal gets ruled off for offsides, I thought the fix was in. I thought the fix was in. I was like, oh, this is it. It's over.
I tweeted immediately with the picture and saying, "How is this offside?" And weirdly enough, I got mixed reactions to so people were explaining. Even you came out to explain that, oh yeah, there's only one player behind the goalkeeper, so that makes it
Yeah,
offside. But when it took them about 5 minutes for the broadcasters to explain why it was, because they couldn't understand why it was offside either. Because it's
yeah,
one of those rules that you don't see a lot. Like you don't really see like, oh, that rule called into play. But even when it was, that was not the reason why they called it, because there was only
exactly.
one player behind the goalkeeper. They called it because it said the initial pass that went in was offside. And I think like, how'd you make that call? It's literally a cluster. There's like people colliding and everything, and they just go to show this weird, and they're starting to show this with this weird animated, like, oh, this animated player figure on the offside. I don't care. You show me shit. I don't believe it. I just don't. You could be showing me anything. I just don't care, because I think it's just so stupid that the games come down to this fact. This going to the
Yeah,
bigger picture of VAR. I hate that it comes down to the almost the molecules. Like we're removing players out of the frame completely and using this animated, like almost like an algorithm to where, okay, yeah, he's offside. It's like that's literally like that's impossible for the human eye to call. It's just basically a technology driven game now. It's like at one point, when do we take the players out there? We're gonna do VAR. We're just gonna do playing simulations. Like it's
like
ridiculous, man.
FIFA.
Like the goal should have stood, but I think that's why I tweeted out that Qatar. I still believe they're trying everything they can. They're using every little squeeze of the get the little luck of the coin flip to save them from that. But this team is so bad that there's not amount of corruption in the world to hide to push this shambles of a team past the round of 16. And look, I gotta apologize to the Netherlands that I chose this team to go to the round 16, but partial of that was the fact that I thought maybe they could, get a little, lucky calls by the ref. But after that game, absolutely not. There's no hiding this team. It'd be like trying to sneak an elephant in the mall. You can't get that through. It's not working. And especially to Ecuador. Ecuador, okay, look, Valencia played well. He played very well. 2 goals in your opener. What else can you ask for? You get a 2-0 win against a team that's playing five in the back that are trying to defend with their lives, but they can't guard a parked car. Like they can't defend nothing.
They
And
can't.
and they still lost 2-0. It's like Qatar, I would be surprised if they even score a goal in open play. I would be shocked if they score one goal,
I
let
would be
alone
shocked
win
as
a
well.
game, let alone
Look,
win a fucking game.
the only way Qatar are scoring is if Sepp Blatter comes back and beats the FIFA president again. It's the only way it's happening. They're going to need prime Sepp Blatter corruption in order for Qatar to do anything in
They're
this.
gonna need it.
That's not going to happen, obviously.
It's not happening.
I
And
would
they're
just
the
say
first team
exactly.
in to ever host the World Cup to lose their opening game. It's just like Jesus, man. It's not good for Qatar.
Yeah, I
I
would.
had a little sympathy for him, but it's just like the amount of things that gone into this World Cup. I have no sympathy for this team no more. I want them to lose every game 5-0. Like I want to see them gone.
How many goals will the Netherlands be able to put past this team, bro? I think they're going for a touchdown. It might be 7-0.
The the fact that the Netherlands probably play five in the back as well. It might be, it's the Netherlands though. I think if they play Depay might, he might come out with some basketball stats or something. He might get
He's
like
gonna he's gonna get
30
golden boot
damn
just off of
points
that game.
just off that one game. That's another thing. We didn't even take that into account. It's like whoever has Qatar in their group, if you play Qatar, you might get three. If Valencia's getting two, who should have gotten three, how much is Depay gonna get? It's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah. I
ridiculous, man.
think
They don't deserve to be on the stage.
no, they don't, and that's why it's kind of like one of the things. Like I said, they never would have made a World Cup if they weren't the host nation because they're just not good.
Absolutely,
They're just not good
it's
enough.
not good enough.
It's no disrespect to them as footballers or anything like that, but they need to go
Or
back
them
to
as
the
a
drawing
country
board.
is just that.
And,
Yeah,
it,
it's just them
and
as
they need to start. They need to get back in the training ground and get better. I guess it's just one of those things.
They need another 6 months. Maybe they should have done this. 4 years ago. Yeah, they should have just stopped. Like
Yeah,
as soon
stop
as they
everything
found
for
out they were the
four
host country,
years.
stop everything for 4 years straight. They should have done it. Even
Yeah,
that might have
4 years
not been
straight.
good enough. That wouldn't have been enough time for them.
And it's hard for me to give a accurate representation of Ecuador because you're playing Qatar. Like how good is this Ecuadorian team? I mean, they look like Barcelona out there compared to Qatar, but does that mean that they're going to
But
actually be
like
able to
prime
compete with
Brazil.
Senegal? Are they going to be able to compete with the Netherlands? Like ultimately, it's looking like the Ecuador Senegal game might decide who finishes
Yeah, who finished
second in
second?
the
Yeah,
group, and Senegal, they weren't the best, but they were unlucky, I would say, to with their result against the Netherlands. They were unlucky to not have
that
scored. They
do
were
some good
unlucky to
chances.
lose 2-0. But Ecuador, they have 7 consecutive clean sheets now in international play. They dominated this game. Obviously, Ener Valencia had a masterclass. And one name I would just like to go out and say, one to watch, especially for this Ecuadorian team going forward, Estupiñán from Brighton and Hove. He's the left back. I have him in my FIFA team.
Stooping.
And for Ecuador, he absolutely ran the show. And it's weird to say that a left back ran the show, but he had the most touches, the most final passes, joint most tackles. He put on an absolute show down the left flank, and he absolutely ran that play for Ecuador. Obviously, Ener Valencia gets the goals, but if you listen to the commentators, every other time he was saying Estupiñán has the ball, Estupiñán has the ball. He always had the ball. He was absolutely running the show. So that's someone that is one to watch out for. But it's hard to 100% say, Ecuador, they're a quality team or they've proven themselves because it was Qatar, and it's tough to actually give a fair judgment on them. It's one of those things. When they play their next match, we'll probably learn more about Ecuador. How good are they? Are they able to get a draw in their next match? Are they able to win their next match? If they're able to do that, then they've proven themselves. But I just don't quite know if that's going to happen. It's one of those things. The World Cup for Ecuador really starts when they play their next match, ultimately. Because
Yeah.
this was just basically a warm-up game.
Yeah, basically. Absolutely.
And,
I agree.
And the fact that we have to sit through another Qatar, 2 more Qatar games.
Two
Oh
more
my
Qatar
God.
games. What's the over-unders on them scoring? I'm pulling all on the under. Give me all
It's
the
over under 0.5. I'm taking the under. They're not scoring. The only way they're scoring is if they get a pen. But in order to get a penalty, they have to get the ball in the opponent's box.
Yeah. That was something else I didn't even talk about. That they only had the box. They were only in Valencia's box 3 times in 90 minutes,
You
and
can't
with
even rig
zero
the game
shots
for
on
them.
target. With 0 shots on target, you can't even give them a pen because they're only in the box 3 damn times. What are you gonna do? As soon as they touch the box, you're gonna go, oh, that's a pen. It's just like shit, man. You can't even help these guys. It's like I think if this is as corrupt as we would think, they're sitting in the room back with the refs. It's like, okay, how are we gonna give you this game? It's like, can y'all get in the box for us? And they can't do it. They're
They
just
can't even do it.
incapable.
They
It's
can't
just like
string together
they
3
can't even do
passes.
that. just you know, it's just they're shambles, absolute shambles. But
It just goes to show that
enough.
a team like this probably
Yeah,
shouldn't be getting the World Cup, but moving forward on
probably
to the
not.
next one.
But enough with this that shatters of football. Time for another pretty blockbuster game that was a bit of a I wasn't expecting to be quite a somewhat entertaining game for one side, but it was England versus Iran,
Mhm.
and I want obviously they won 6-2, and I wanted to get your thoughts on them because you laid in heavy on Southgate. Driving the bus, you're driving this the get them out bus. What was your thoughts on this performance from England?
Well, first and foremost, I expected Iran to be better than what they were, and it's one of those things. It's hard, like I said previously with Qatar. It's hard for me to fully say how good this England team really is and have they 100% proved themselves because it was Iran. They're solid, but they've just gone ahead and shown that they're nothing special. But obviously England dominated the match, 78% possession, 8 corners, 13 shots. But the alarming thing for me, their expected goals in the match, 2.11, and Iran had 1.75. So, in terms of expected goals, it seems as if England, they scored some worldies. They showed off their clinical finishing, but they didn't create necessarily enough chances to have 6 goals. They overperformed, and that just goes to
Mm-hmm.
show the depth and quality between two teams. But given how we have just seen Argentina play against Saudi Arabia, you have to give England 100% credit for coming out and putting the foot on the ground and taking care of business against Iran, because let's not act like they're scrubs. We just don't quite know how good they are and how they match up. It's just one of those things. I'm not quite 100% convinced on Southgate and this England team yet. I think it's a positive step in the right direction. I think, Jude Bellingham, he absolutely played amazing. Saka, I said he should be starting, and then he did start, and this is what you
And he
get.
did.
Harry Kane ran the show, 2 assists. It was a absolute masterclass performance. And, Saka, he has now scored more World Cup goals than Rooney. I mean, he scored more World Cup goals than Rooney. And Jude Bellingham, 100% tackle success, 100% take-ons completed, 97% pass accuracy, 7 duels won, 1 goal, 13 passes into the final third. He absolutely ran the show. What a player he is. He might be the,
What
the
a
number
guy.
one contender for best young player at the moment at the World Cup. But I'm just not 100% sure how good this England team is. And it's going to be telling how they perform against the United States, just how good as they are. Because if this is anything to show, and if this is what the England that we're going to get every game, they might win the World Cup. Genuinely, they might be winning the World Cup if they're able to play like this every game. But is that going to happen, or is this just a little bit of a fluke performance against a team that's not that good? It remains to be seen. I'm not ready to get on here and say England is back. They're winning the World Cup. It's coming home. 1966 and
It's
2022.
coming home.
I'm not quite ready to say that yet. After we watch them against the United States, I might be ready to say that. But I'm not. I'm pumping the brakes on England. It was a quality win. I'm giving them credit. Masterclass performance. They had a lot of good performances individually that impressed me, but I'm not ready to say they are winning the World Cup by any stretch of the imagination. They're going to have to prove a little bit more to me.
Yeah, I think we actually saw this a little bit differently. My first initial reactions to this game was, what a statement from the Three Lions. The fact that they went out there, 78% possession, like you said, 13 shots, 7 on target with 6 goals. And the pass ratio, they had 797 passes to Iran's 215. They basically played keep away this entire game. The and just a performance from overall. You talk about like Saka and Kane and Drew Bellingham. Another player that doesn't really get much praise is Declan Rice. The fact that
Mhm.
he's the ultimate disruptor, he's the backbone of that midfield, played absolutely brilliantly. That entire team played brilliantly, and they released the lineup, and I had to tweet out, I was like, "Uh-oh, is this the same old England? They're bench Phil Foden and starting Harry Maguire." I was like, "This doesn't look good." But Southgate made me look like a fool. They played great. They played absolutely brilliantly when no Phil Foden. And to be fair, Harry Maguire played very well.
He did.
He went out with what looks to be a concussion. Hopefully he's all right, because I think he plays a big role in Southgate's whole system of how he wants to play.
He does,
But
yeah.
I think this whole England performance, they put the entire tournament on notice that they're here to win it all. That there's no messing about. This team's here to win. And it's not that same team that we saw through the qualifiers that are like, that were kind of just scraping by. This is a team that as soon as they get the chance, they're putting teams to bed. And I get Iran's not a world beater, but to score 6 on any team that's not Qatar is pretty difficult. It's
It
pretty
is.
difficult to put 6 past these teams that qualify for the World Cup, because it takes a level of standard to get into the World Cup. For England just to absolutely wipe them off the freaking map it's impressive. And I got to give Southgate credit. He got this one right. But I'm not going to give the full credit to Southgate. I think a lot of this comes down to just individual brilliance of the players. I got to see Southgate do this for the longevity of a tournament. I have to see him finish this out. I think how England played, they should be going undefeated through this group. They should be finishing top with no with all their points, and they gotta go into the round of 16 and get a favorable matchup. After this one, it made me start to think, how other teams are performing. Argentina, off to a little bit of a slow start. France looking, they look all right, but they're not untouchable. And we haven't seen Portugal yet, and we haven't seen Germany, but I would vault England to that top 3, top 4 range, and I think they're a top 4 team in this World Cup. And from that performance, it's just like this team, if they could start clicking, and they're going to go into the next game very confident. It's going to be very concerning for the United States that this team is coming in confident. And they didn't even use Phil Foden. They didn't really need him, and they just scored for fun. So
Yeah.
this completely changes how I kind of looked at England, because I just looked at them as as tournament fodder, that they probably, I think I had them going out in the round. I think I had them going the first round. Realistically, they could be easily a semifinal team, or possibly a final team, because this how they played was spectacular.
No, I 100% agree. It was an absolutely spectacular performance, and I'm not denying that. I'm just I just can't say I agree with what you were saying. I think that they've proven themselves as potentially a top 4 team in this tournament. It's just it's Iran. I can't like they're a quality team, but I'm not ready to go ahead and say they're winning the World Cup yet. Obviously that's what people want to hear. That's what people are expecting from England. I'm not
hmm
ready to go there yet, and quite frankly, I don't think you're ready to go there yet either because you didn't say it.
I'm not gonna say, yeah, they're gonna win it, but I give them a good shot to make the final. A lot of a better shot. Before, I wouldn't even say there's no chance they make the final. Now I think they could easily make the final, and they could easily win it. I think they could easily get to the final, and they could win. If they get in the final, they keep playing like this, they can do it. I feel that they're a lot more confident. I think they beat. I just have to see everybody play first, but I doubt Germany and Portugal and all these other teams are going to have a better start, better game one than England had.
Yeah, I mean, you have to give them credit. I think I 100% agree with what you said. I based on and this, it hurts to say it, but the reality of the situation is I 100% expect
It's not
England to
looking
finish
good.
this. I 100% expect England to finish this group top of the group with 9 points. They should beat Wales handily, and quite frankly, they should beat the United States handily. But we'll probably get into
They
that
should.
more in
Their
depth when we
revolution.
talk about the United States. I
Yeah,
think England, they definitely have proved themselves to be the team that a lot of people thought they were. I had them going out in the round of 16 in my pre-tournament predictions. it might be time to admit that I was probably a little bit wrong on that. But you
No,
know, to
yeah,
but a lot remains to be seen. Obviously, you hinted at Harry Maguire's injury with the concussion, and I
and a
mentioned this in my
hurricane.
exactly. I mentioned this in my pre-tournament analysis of England. Their depth, especially on the back line, is not looking good.
And
If
Kyle
Harry
Walker's still
Maguire
not back yet.
if Harry Maguire is out for a longer period of time because of this concussion, which might, I don't know if that's going to happen. Their backup is probably going to be Eric Dyer coming in. He's not giving me faith,
That's not very
and
good.
not that the United States and Wales has absolutely electrifying attacks that is going to, threaten England so much that Eric Dyer is going to be exposed. But if it's a longer term thing, that's going to be something to watch out for. It's going to be a concern because there are going to be lethal attacks that are going to be able to exploit this defense. And even if Harry Maguire does come back, quite frankly, I still think that's the big weakness of this England team. And will they be able to score the amount of goals like they scored against Iran? Are they going to be able to put up 3-4 goals consistently? I don't know if that's going to happen. They're going to have to grind out some results. They're going to have to show that they can win a 1-0. And quite frankly, I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if they can. That's when maybe the narrative for me will start to change. I think it's going to be a significantly tougher test against the United States. And if they win that game handily 3-4-0, then I might have to come on here next week and say I was wrong about England. They're going to the final. They're going to win this thing. And that's not saying that United States is a bunch of world beaters by any stretch of the imagination. But they are
You're
better
making
than
it seem like
Iran,
they're
and I'm
France.
going to get into that when I talk about the United States men's national team. I just think Iran, I expected them to be better, like I said, but they're going to finish bottom of this group, I expect.
Yeah, I would say. I would agree. But
But segueing onto the United States men's national team, obviously,
USA versus Wales, which was highly anticipated for the both of us. Us both being Americans, and I know you tuned in heavily. I
yeah.
I had a couple things going on. I wasn't that into the game, so that's why I'm going to lean on you a little bit more on this one. I wanted to get your thoughts and reactions on how this game turned out into your eyes. What was your thoughts and reactions after the 90th whistle blew?
I would just say it's hard to not come away from that game disappointed. Obviously, the United States came out in the first half, and keep in mind, this was the first World Cup for pretty much 99% of this roster. DeAndre Yedlin was, I think, the only player with any World Cup experience at all. And he's not even a starter by any stretch. He comes out, he came off the bench. And, myself included, this was the first World Cup game for the country in 8 years. I had no idea what to expect. And they blew me away in the first half. I was absolutely impressed by this United States performance in the first half. They ran the game. They
Will.
absolutely put on a show. They won the first half 0.66 to 0.17 on expected goals. They absolutely were outclassing Wales in every stretch of the phase of the game. They had a better defense. They had a better midfield. They had a better attack. And quite frankly, they needed to put away this game in the first half. And that's my issue with the United States. They dominated that first half. They only had one goal to show for it. They didn't create enough. And you have to give credit to Wales because they came out in a deep block. They were defending well. And they definitely had their tactics. They knew United States has skillful players that want to be on the ball. Christian Pulisic, for example. And they just did hack a Pulisic. They just absolutely beat him up in the midfield.
They took him out the game. They took him out the game.
They absolutely just fouled him over and over and over again. And
they were not going to let Pulisic beat them.
And that was their tactic. And ultimately, Pulisic, the one opportunity he did get to drive at the back line, he was able to provide the assist for Timothy Weah. And that was a mistake on Wales' part. Pretty much the rest of the game, it was hack a Pulisic. They didn't let him turn with the ball. They didn't let him drive. And it's disappointing that the United States was not able to put away more goals because of how good of a performance it was in the first half. And I said it at the time. You need to put teams away when you are winning handily. When you have a chokehold on the match, you got to put the game away. United States did not put this game away. It was 1-0. And you had a sneaky feeling that after halftime, Wales were going to make a tactical switch and they were going to be able to put a better force into the game and potentially go for the draw, maybe even the win. And that's exactly what happened. What changed this game was the United States got complacent after they went up 1-0, and they knew they were the better side. They knew they were playing better. Everyone on the pitch knew it. Everyone in the crowd knew it. The fans knew it. Everyone knew. This whole team got complacent. It was 1-0. Wales come out in the second half. They sub on Kiefer Moore, and Kiefer Moore absolutely changed the game. He put on a show. He had an absolute masterclass. 45 minutes played, 25 touches, 5 touches in the opponent box, 3 duels won, 2 aerial duels won, and he created 1 chance in the match. And obviously, Bale was able to put away the penalty. It was just one of those things. Wales absolutely dominated the second half because they changed their tactics. They changed how they were playing. They subbed off Daniel James, who was playing striker. They put on a big, I think 6'6" Kiefer Moore. They played hoof it up football, and they just played proper, 1960 British football. Get it up the pitch, cross it in, son, and let's hope
That's
for
good, yeah.
let's hope for it. And that's what they did. They won the second half, 1.38 to 0.13. They absolutely put the pressure on the United States men's national team. They couldn't hold the ball at some points, and that pressure continued to build. It continued to build. Greg Berhalter did not make the adjustments that I expected him to make, and ultimately that's what let this team down. I'm not going to go ahead and put all the blame on Greg Berhalter. I think it's a little bit harsh. At first, when I was first reacting to the game, I was ready to lash into him.
No, you weren't happy. You were not
but,
happy.
taking a step back, he did make some adjustments with substitutes. Ultimately, he didn't. And I don't know if this necessarily comes down to him or the team or whatever, but they just weren't able to deal with the pressure that Wales were continuously putting on. And, he tried to make some subs. It just didn't quite work out. You can argue that the right subs weren't made. When you're subbing on DeAndre Yedlin, who's kind of washed to a certain extent, you're subbing on Kellen Acosta, who's an MLS player. You sub on Brendan Aronson for Weston McKennie, which is one of the best players, but obviously McKennie was a little bit banged up. Aronson, he didn't have a bad match once he came into it, but he wasn't able to release the pressure that Wales were having. And ultimately, when you let a team like Wales hang in the game and you have a guy like Gareth Bale, he's going to come back and he's going to make you pay at some point. And ultimately, Walker Zimmerman, it's so unfortunate because he had a great game. That center back duo of Tim Ream and Walker Zimmerman was absolutely phenomenal. But one lapse of concentration, one idiotic challenge, Walker Zimmerman slides in from behind, no reason to make the tackle. And ultimately, Gareth Bale is able to put away that penalty. And it's just disappointing because it's a tie that feels like a loss. It's one of those things. Iran, they've kind of shown they're probably not going to do much in this group. It's going to come down to Wales. It's going to come down to the United States. And if the United States were able to win that game like they should have won, based on what I saw, they'd already be pretty much through. But now they're going to leave a little bit more pressure. It's going to come down ultimately to who can concede the least to England and who can score the most on Iran. And you don't want to leave it up to that. You just don't, especially when you had the game at the scruff of the neck and you had the opportunities and they just weren't able to put them away. And it's just disappointing. It's just disappointing. Ultimately, Giovanni Reina should have been subbed on for me personally. He's a superstar for Borussia Dortmund. He did it in World Cup qualifying. And ultimately, it's disappointing for me that he didn't make an appearance. There's rumors coming out that Berhalter was saving him for England. And if that's true, absolutely pathetic. Absolutely pathetic thought process. It's a disgraceful thought process. If you're saving a guy for England, it doesn't make any sense. If that's the case, I'm not going to lash into him completely because I don't know if it's true or not. It's just a rumor. But if that is the case, it's an absolute disgrace. It's a disgrace. He should have been subbed on. In my opinion, he could have changed the game. We know his quality, but Tyler Adams had a masterclass in the midfield. And ultimately, it was one lapse of concentration with the Wales quick throw in and then a Walker Zimmerman mistake, which let Wales get a cheeky goal and ultimately get a draw. With all that being said, it's disappointing, but it was an impressive performance from the United States when you look back on it now. Obviously, it's a tie that feels like a loss, so of course you're going to be mad. But I just think ultimately, a couple of days, a day has passed. And it's just time to move on to the England game. And ultimately, it was an impressive performance from this young United States side. And I still have 100% faith that they will make it out of this group. because I think that they will beat Iran handily, and I think that England and the United States, it's going to be a tough matchup. England probably should win. They will win, I think, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of things you said. From what I did see from that first half, the United States played very well. Wales just looked all over the place. It looked every bit of a team that hasn't been in the World Cup in 64 years. They looked every bit of it. They couldn't
Mhm.
string any passes together past this United States midfield that was being ran. The show was being ran by Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie. Absolute masterclass, and that which ended up translating well to the build-up play to Christian Pulisic and then to Timothy Weah, son of the great George Weah, and
Yeah,
just a great goal, great team goal. But then the script just completely flipped the second half. The USA then converted and looked to the team that completely missed the World Cup 4 years ago. They
exactly.
they they completely flipped to where they just came out like you said, complacent, and they just got they were Wales started to make adjustments to get the game a little closer, and then it came down to one shocking mistake by Walker Zimmerman. What were you thinking? That was that. You're just diving right. You're going straight through Gareth Bale. It's like, what did you think was going to happen there? It's like, you know, and it's always going to feel like that because it's not like you're giving up a goal on open play. You gave up a pen. You made a mistake. You know, I think it would be a little bit different if Wales completely broke down the United States and scored. You feel like,
Exactly.
okay, that they kind of deserve that one. We kind of fought for that draw, but you gave them the point. Walker Zimmerman, you got a 3.3 rating for a reason, man. You gave him the game.
You
You
did.
sold. You gave it to him. And that's why a lot you're always going to leave this game with a bad taste in your mouth because the United States should have won this game. They played good enough in the first half to deserve a win, but it's football. You make a mistake, you put Gareth Bale to the penalty line, he's not going to miss.
Yeah, no, it was one of those things. Based on that second half performance, the United States were lucky to even get a draw. It was an absolutely terrible second half.
It was horrible. It was not good.
And the fact that throughout the whole second half, Berhalter, everyone could see it. So maybe I don't know if he just didn't see it or he didn't know what he could do or he thought they would rebound and be okay. But the fact that you couldn't make any in-game adjustment to alter what Wales were doing, for me that's the only thing I can get on Berhalter about. I just think he should have tweaked something, and I don't know exactly what he should have tweaked, what he could have done, but I just feel like you had to try something, besides the substitution to try to counteract what Wales was doing. And ultimately it just didn't happen. The United States, based on the second half, they were very lucky to come away with a point. And if they didn't come away with a point, it'd be over for them. So ultimately
Yeah,
you take the point. I think overall, you take the point. If you told me going into the game that Wales would dominate the second half and the United States would dominate the first half and it ends up a draw, you probably take that because ultimately you still got England coming up, which is obviously going to be tough, but you got to play Iran. And I just have faith in this team based on what I saw in the first half that Iran isn't probably going to be able to do what Wales did. And
probably
it's
not.
a game
Probably not.
it's a game of experience under this young team's belt. The mistakes that they made probably aren't going to quite happen again. I think it's a learning experience to a certain extent. And overall, I consider us slightly lucky to get the point, but it gives me positive vibes going forward based on what I saw in the first half. I think this team is good enough to do and make some noise in this World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. But I'd like to see them get out of the round of 16. That's I think that for the United States, that's the ceiling realistically. They get out of the
Yeah,
round of 16. But I fancy them to get out of this group. I think they're gonna beat Iran more than what the Wales would beat them by, and it's gonna come
bruh,
down to the fact that if you're gonna lose to England, just make sure it's not 6-2. Like
exactly.
make it respectable. Make it like a 2-0 or your 1-0. Or, you know,
what gives me the most faith is that, the United States is a very attacking-minded team with great, attackers, and we've seen Iran gonna leak in 6 goals, and to be honest, Wales, they scored a pen. They have no attacking, they have not much attack going forward. Iran and Wales might be the worst game of the tournament. It's gonna be an absolute snooze fest. I think it
nah.
might be a
Any
nil-nil
any
or
any game
1-0.
with Qatar is probably the worst game.
This one is gonna be up there for, competing with it, I think.
Gonna be
But
competing for the Hall of Shame performance.
But before we move on to the United States as a rivals, Mexico and how they fared, obviously we both we know we both have our opinion on how this, game against England is going to go. Do you see any way that the United States is able to get anything from this game against England on Friday? Any way?
As of right now, no shot. Absolutely not. I think it would be like a miracle, like like almost the second coming of Christ if they even get a draw. At this moment, like, I think the most they could hope for is maybe like you draw England to a shootout. That's all that like you get them in there cuz England can be attacked. I mean they did give up, they gave up 2 goals. One was a pen at the last minute, but there was chances that Iran had, and it's like if the U.S. get in those spots, could they finish them? Can they not? I mean, it's football. It's what we come to watch. It's what we want to see. But definitely, England are the overwhelming favorites. It's they're going into that game. I think it's going to be a comfortable win for England, but I've seen crazier shit happen. I mean, like
This morning.
if you told me the other day I would be waking up at 5 in the morning to watch Argentina lose 2-1 to, I would say that's you're probably stupid, but it's football. It's what we watch, and we're gonna be watching, and anything could happen. But if I had a gun to my head and you told me make a choice, England comfortably,
Yeah, no, it's one of those things. It's hard to say this because part of me has that blind faith with the United States, and I want
the
to say
blind
that we
faith.
can get a result. But ultimately, being 100% objective, England, they were absolutely dominant against Iran. And if we couldn't hold up against Wales's pressure, God help us, bro, when we have England pressuring us, because it might not be looking good. I would say, a draw would be an amazing result. Do I think it's going to
Oh, that'd
happen?
be a
Not
miracle.
not particularly. I don't think it's going to happen. But if we can get a draw, then we're definitely making it out of the group, because at this point I'm
Ah,
expecting us to make it out of the group without this draw. I hope we can get something. I hope it's possible. And even if we lose, I hope like we can score a couple goals or something, and make it interesting, and show that we know just another step forward, and that Iran on the final day, it's going to be it's going to be a dominant win. That's what I would like to come from this England game thinking. But ultimately, I have to agree. If I had a gun to my head, pick a team, USA or England, I'm definitely picking England, because based on what I've seen, England might just absolutely smack us. But I expect like a 2-0, or a 3-1. And that's
yeah.
what it has to be. For the United States, you can't lose this game by more than 2 goals. You can't. Anything more than 2 goals, it's getting real dark and shady on your
Not
chances
looking
to advance
good.
from the group. It's getting real bad, because Wales are going to play the deep block, and they're going to try to go for a 1-0. And England might not be able to break them down quite as easily as the United States. You cannot lose this game by more than 2 goals. If you do, then it's getting dark, and it's not looking good for the United States to advance. But I think it'll be a 2-0 or 3-1 type of game for England. It'll be a comfortable win. Not quite as comfortable as Iran, but a comfortable win. And it sucks, because I would love to get on here and say we're going to beat England, but it's just not going to happen.
They're gonna get their revenge.
But like I said, crazier things have happened. It's football at the end of the day.
Yeah. We'll be watching. We'll be watching. But speaking of the U.S., we're going to their one of their rivals. They've always been rivals. The hatred between them. Mexico played Poland today, and what was pretty much to me a very lackluster game. Not very much happened. This is probably one of those games that you could have missed off. You could have just taking this one off, because not very
Yeah,
much
taking a
happened.
nap.
But I want,
This
yeah,
is a game. If you woke up at 5 in the morning for Argentina, you took a nap during this game because oh my god,
if
it
this
could have
one
been
was,
so
I
close.
wish this one was at 5 because I would have slept through it. But yeah, I wanted to get what were your thoughts of Mexico? You being, having that more of a rivalry against the, how was it watching your rival play Poland?
I would say I expected Poland to be better than what they were. Mexico, in my opinion, they came out and they looked like the better side in this game. And I said that I didn't think this Mexico team was quite as good as previous ones in the past, and I didn't have them making out of the group. But based on what I saw, Mexico are they're going to be a tough test for Argentina next, and it's going to be interesting to see if they are able to make it out of the group now because they've proven themselves a little bit to me. You know, obviously their main issue is the fact that they don't quite have the punch at the
They're
number
on the
9
firepower,
position.
yeah.
They don't quite have that attacking firepower, and that is going to be a concern. But they were able to
It's
hold
weird because
possession
they,
while
they
they
have Raul Jimenez. I mean,
yeah,
I
but
think he's pretty solid, but he just doesn't.
yeah, it's not quite firing at the moment for him. It's
Yeah.
just one of those things. I think Mexico they were able to retain possession well. They impressed me. They absolutely, in my opinion, if you're gonna say somebody dominated the match, you say Mexico because Mexico
Yeah.
they
Oh
created
yeah.
the better.
They had a
They
lot of. They
created the
had pretty good chances.
they
They had very
created the
good
better
chances.
chances. They retained possession better, and I just expected more out of Poland. Not that this Poland team is anything special, but at the end of the day, you've got one of the best number 9s in the world, if not the best, and this is all you got to show for it. To be fair, and with that being said, even though I said Mexico they created the better chances, they were probably the better side. This game came down to once again a pen, and I thought it was a pen. Clear as day. If you don't see this type of pen being called, every day, especially in the Premier League and normal club football. But based on the way refereeing has been in the World Cup, they're really honing down on the shirt pulling and the shirt tugging in the box. And Moreno, he tried to rip Lewandowski's jersey off. He was trying to make him nude. He's getting the Vogue cover ready, So I thought
Get
it
him
was
on
a pen,
Vogue.
and ultimately, Lewandowski is a fraud. He's a fraud. What was that?
He
It was one of
he
the
missed one
worst
pen.
penalties. One of the worst
Okay.
penalties that you could possibly have. No conviction. He looked like a guy who wasn't confident. He looked like a guy. Look, you want to see a confident guy who's stepping up when his country needs him the most? Look at Gareth Bale. Absolutely lashes in a penalty against the United States in the 80th minute when he needs it the most. Lewandowski, the lights are the brightest. The lights are shining on you, and this is what we got. The worst penalty, arguably, of the whole tournament so far. And no conviction, nothing. And I expect better from somebody who I've called the best number 9 in the world. It was an absolutely pathetic penalty. You're making Memo Ochoa turn back the clock to 2014. You're making him look like he's 2014 Ochoa.
Yes.
All respect to Ochoa, but Lewandowski has to do
Ochoa.
better. He has to do better. He's let his country down. He still has no World Cup goals in his career. He's let his country down. And they had no right to win this game. I'm not saying they did. They were outclassed by Mexico, in my opinion. But football is a weird game. And, sometimes, the better team doesn't always win. In this case, Poland should have won this game just because of the fact that they had the most clear-cut chance of the entire match, a bloody pen, with the best number 9 in the world, or one of, and this is what you got. An absolute terrible pen to go up with the terrible performance. Look, the expected goals, I love using expected goals as a stat, but the expected goals do not tell the story of this match because Poland won 1.02 to 0.75, but 0.8 of those expected goals was from the penalty. So realistically, Mexico, they absolutely dominated this match. It was an absolute pathetic performance from Lewandowski and the rest of this Poland team, to be quite honest. I expected much, much more. But it gives me faith for Argentina because a draw was the perfect result for Argentina.
Yeah.
And neither of these two teams looked like they got the punch, and that's my biggest takeaway. Neither of these two teams look like world beaters by any stretch of the imagination, and it's just quite disappointing. I would say it's disappointing, especially given how the game played out.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with some of the points, but I think we gotta pump the hate brakes a little bit here. I mean, look, Lewandowski had no. I'm not gonna say he had a great game. I think he only had like I think 3 touches in the box in total. Like obviously that's not what you want from your talisman striker. There's the greatest player to ever come out of your country. But it's a pen. I mean, realistically, like
You've got to
Ochoa
score.
gets the right way. Okay, look, Ochoa gets the right way. Look, if I saw a pretty poor pen in Valencia's pen versus Qatar, he literally just calmly walked up and slotted it in. Look, if you guess the right way, it's the thing with penalties. You guess the right way, I mean, shit happens.
Nah, nah.
If
Does
if
happen.
Ochoa goes the other way, Lewandowski scores. No matter what the conviction or what the hell, he gets the
Look,
right way. He gets the right way, and that's just the end of it. That's how
he
pens
did guess
work.
the
I
right
mean,
way,
everybody misses pens.
but let's go ahead and use Gareth Bale's penalty against the United States as a prime example. Matt Turner gets a hand on it. He goes the right way, but Gareth Bale put his full force behind the ball, lashes into it. No keeper is saving that pen, even if you guess the right way. There are unsavable penalties, even if you guess the right way. Gareth Bale's was a prime example. Matt Turner is a great shot stopper, and he was not. He got a hand to it, but no one was saving that pen. You got to have a bloody hand to it, and you still couldn't save it. You get a hand to a penalty, you're expecting to save it. Just didn't happen. Lewandowski, no conviction. It was a bad pen. It wasn't even fully in the corner. Put your laces through it. Do I have to explain to Lewandowski how to take a conviction pen? It's not
Yep.
difficult.
I get what you're saying, but I can't like completely say it. I don't see it as you make it seem like he's missed an open net. It's like
He might as well have.
he yeah the apps. I mean no, because if it, like I said, alternate universe, Ochoa dived it the other way and Lewandowski scores. Then we're not having this conversation at all. Look, I get it. Look, it was a poor pen, but as just how penalties are, he gets the right way. If he didn't guess the right way, he would have scored. No matter what the conviction, no matter how hard he hits the ball, no matter what, left foot, right foot, I don't give a damn. Ochoa happened to guess the right way. It happened. He hit it poor. But that doesn't really have to change the fact that this deserved to be a draw.
Oh, he
Poland,
did.
like you said, Poland probably should have won just on the pure fact they got a pen. But I think Ochoa was the bigger part in that he just guessed the right way and stopped it, because he could have stayed down the middle or he could have chose the other way. You have to make a decision, and Ochoa
It's
chose
Robert
right.
Lewandowski, bro. It's Robert Lewandowski.
People miss pens. I mean, shit happens. You
It's
get guessed.
Robert
People get.
Lewandowski. Your country needs you. The game is on the line. Your country needs you. You are the greatest player in Poland history, and
I've seen the greatest player of all time miss pens.
of course it happens. But your country needs you. You are the greatest, if not the second greatest, number 9. In current football and of this generation. He's up there, probably a top 5 number 9. He hasn't scored a World Cup goal. He can change the narrative completely if he scores this pen, puts his foot through it, gives a proper pen. He looked like a guy who was not confident. He looked like a guy who he knows he has to take the pen because he's Robert Lewandowski, but he looked like a guy who wasn't confident. He didn't like the big moment. And that's not what you want from your star talisman number 9. You need a guy like Gareth Bale, put the ball down, put your laces through it. You knew Bale was scoring that pen. As soon as they got it, you knew Wales were going to score that penalty. You can't say the same about Robert Lewandowski in Poland. You can't say the same.
Well, hindsight's 2020. You could say that. I mean, before
He looked
I
unconfident.
can guarantee you, even before they took the pen, you weren't thinking that. You weren't just gonna think, oh yeah, Lewandowski's just gonna completely.
I was
miss. It's
happy that Poland got the pen, but look, Lewandowski looked the guy who was not ready for that moment. He looked not confident. He didn't look like.
I think that plays into the fact that he was also playing poor that game. But I'm not gonna just completely throw him under the hate train bus that he's
He's a
he's
fraud.
completely fallen out. He's a fraud. No, he's not a fraud. He missed
fraud.
one pen, man.
He's a
he had
fraud
one
for his country. His country needed him,
his country isn't very good. You're acting like he's on like France or something. That he's
his
done
country
this for France.
needed him.
Poland's not a good team, and it's like that. That'd almost be like that'd be like me saying, "Oh, Holland's garbage because he didn't make the World Cup." Holland, you're the best striker. You should be carrying this.
We're
team.
talking about a penalty, bro. We're talking about look 1-on-1, the best number 9.
You're
The best
calling him a
number 9.
fraud. You're calling him a fraud because he's playing bad for his country. So let's hold every top striker to that standard that don't play good for their country.
I'm calling him a fraud because he's not only been playing bad for his country, but also he missed a pen when his country needed him the
Miss
most.
one pen. Miss one fucking pen.
It's the World Cup.
That's not fair.
There's only one pen. You have to score. It's the World Cup. You got one opportunity. The lights were brightest. He shrunk.
You're acting like he's the only player to ever miss a pen in the World Cup where the lights are bright. It happens. It happens.
But not many players as good as Robert Lewandowski, are always in that moment,
Oh, okay. So if you have this whole idea that Lewandowski is a fraud, are you going to guarantee that they don't make it out of this group at all? That it's just a foregone conclusion. They're not making it out the group.
Oh no, Poland are not making it out the group.
Okay.
At this very moment, if you're asking
Mexico,
me, if you're asking me who makes it out of this group, genuinely, I'm taking Argentina and Saudi Arabia.
What?
I'm taking.
Dude, you're just a Mexico hater, dude. You just the Mexico hatred that goes through you. You just hate them.
How can you watch that Saudi Arabia performance and not say they're not going to make it out of the group?
Because they haven't. I mean, they had the perfect game. Everything literally like the stars align. But everything's aligning.
But Poland and Mexico are not as good of teams as Argentina. They don't have to. They don't have to play as well. We're gonna see. They have these types of tactics. There is no reason for them not to be able to get a win against either Poland or Mexico. And realistically, to get out of the group, they only need one win, and a draw would probably do just fine as well. And they held Argentina to 0 open play goals. 0. The Messi had to get a pen, and it was a phantom pen at that.
The phantom pen. Yeah, like I said, I think that was. I take that game mostly as a one-off, microcosm anomaly that they had the perfect balance. But when they play Mexico and Poland, it's going to be very close games, and I think that,
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I mean Saudi Arabia, my bad. But if Saudi Arabia play Poland, I don't know who wins that. Who wins that? We don't know.
Give me Saudi Arabia. They are winning that game, bro. They are winning that game.
Give me Poland. I'll take Poland. I'll take Poland on that. And against Mexico, I'll take Mexico. I had Mexico making out this group, but if anybody is gonna, overtake Mexico, it's gonna be Poland, man. It's just like I don't know where this hatred for these it's like watching your two exes fight right now, dude.
It was a non-convincing performance. It was a more convincing performance from Mexico, but they still have shown that they have their issues. And Poland looked absolutely pathetic. I still think Argentina will be able to rebound because, quite frankly, they looked pathetic against Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the team in this group that I'm coming away from with the most takeaways saying, wow, this is a good team. The other 3 teams looked absolutely terrible. And if you had told me this is what I was going to be saying, I wouldn't quite have believed it. But the other 3 teams in this group, besides Saudi Arabia, looked terrible. And Saudi Arabia looked great. And Saudi Arabia have the inside track to get out of this group now. They've won the difficult game against Argentina. All they have to do is probably get 1 point or 1 win, a draw or a win against Poland or Mexico. It's not crazy to say that that's going to happen.
We're going to have to see. There's going to be good games. Makes things a little bit more interesting because we didn't think this of Saudi Arabia. We didn't think they'd be in a position to possibly make it out the group. No one had them making it out the group. But now it took one big upset, and now we're talking about these are now Poland versus Saudi Arabia and Mexico versus Saudi Arabia are must see. Every game that's going to be in this group is going to have to be a must see now, just because it's tight. It's going to be tight. But
yeah, genuinely, any 4 of these teams could make it out of the group at this point. Any 4 of them, like out of those 4, any of them could make it out. That's what I'm trying to say. But at this very moment, give me Saudi Arabia, give me Argentina. I don't know exactly the order. Maybe Saudi Arabia might be winning the group, right?
Saudi Arabia wins the group. We'll have to see. But moving on to the other big game that happened, we saw the champs come out to their first game in the defense of their title, playing Australia, and it started out a bit rocky, but ended up coming out to France's favor. What was your initial reactions throughout this game until the final whistle?
I would say, you know, at first, obviously, it wasn't, the immediate thing. It's not the same France team as 2018. We know that. You know, they have some of the same players, but the midfield, of Tchouaméni and Rabiot. I clowned on Rabiot, and I said, "Oh, he shouldn't even
He
be in the
played
squad."
very well. He played very good.
But he had a goal and an assist. He put on a show. But quite frankly, this is not the same France team that it was in 2018. But with that being said, they came out and ultimately, after a shaky start, they put their foot down, and it was a statement performance showing that they still are France at the end of the day. They might not be the exact same. They might not have Kante. They might not have Pogba, but they are still France, and they still have loads of quality players, and they play well as a unit. And ultimately, led by Deschamps, Didier Deschamps, the manager, they just play well as a team. And ultimately, the injury to Lucas Hernandez is a little bit, it's concerning because you don't want to lose somebody that is going to be playing a pivotal role in that defense. But they have, his brother Teo to step right into that
Teo.
role, and
And
Teo's a
he
great
played
player.
very well. He played
Yeah,
very well.
Teo's a great player. I rate him very highly, and it's just one of those things. After a shaky start, because Australia got the first goal, and everyone was saying, "Oh, well, here we go." You said
Here
that
we go.
the group stage
The
curse,
curse.
it's rearing its horns again, and it's coming through. France, they were able to say, hold up, pump the brakes on that. We are still France at the end of the day. Ultimately, they put on a show after that first goal. They absolutely, it's like that was their wake up call, and then they really came out after that, and they put on a show. They had 62% possession, 4.21 expected goals to Australia's 0.52, 23 total shots, 8 big chances, and 4 big chances missed. So realistically, we could be looking at an even more dominant scoreline than what we saw.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things. It was a dominant performance, but with that being said, it's Australia. This is what we expected. They needed to come out. They needed to win this game. They didn't need to quite win it 4-1. I mean, it's convincing that they won it 4-1, but they had to win this game. We all expected them to win this game. There's not too many takeaways from this, like, oh, France they're this, they're that, they're fraud, they're winning the World Cup. You can't go either way because it's Australia. You expect them,
Yeah.
even without the players that they don't have, you expect them to do what they did. I will say Mbappe, he had a great game. He missed a chance that he should have
Missed the
scored.
sitter, yeah.
He'll be kicking himself on that. Olivier Giroud ties Thierry Henry's French record. With 51 goals, you have to give him his credit. It
How did that happen?
Olivier Giroud, and it's crazy to say, he's one of the best nines of this generation. He's one of the best because just based on the resume, he's one of the best. He has consistently done it. He's done it in multiple leagues. He like, I'm not saying he's better than Suarez by any stretch of the imagination or any of these other guys, but he's up there. He's a quality number 9, and he's proven himself once again on the
He's
biggest
solid,
stage
yeah.
that he deserves more respect than what he gets, and he's going to be one of those players that when he does actually retire, he's going to be underrated. People are going to sleep on just how good Olivier Giroud was. But before I pass this back off to you, my final player that put on a show for me, and I've criticized them before, so you're probably going to get a laugh out of this. Ousmane Dembele absolutely ran the show down the right wing for
Wasn't selfish?
France. He wasn't selfish. He was able to pick
He
up an
was not
assist.
selfish? Okay. We're
He
just
he
making sure.
he he played a convincing performance. He had his head down, and he wanted to show just how good he was, and that's what he did. If Ousmane Dembele is going to play like this for the rest of the tournament, I mean, we already knew this France attack was scary, but Ousmane Dembele, if he's playing like this, it's going to be tough to stop this France team. Giroud is going to get lots of chances created by Mbappe and Dembele. I mean, come on, Mbappe playing one wing, Dembele playing the other, bro. Any fullback that is playing against France, they've got their work cut out for them. Whether you're the left back or the right back, it's not looking good. But
Yeah.
it was a convincing win by France, but it's what we expected. I'm not taking too much into this. I still want to see France and specifically this midfield and now kind of this defense, get tested by a team that we kind of have higher expectations for. And that'll be Denmark. I want to see how they play against Denmark. Obviously, Denmark didn't have a great result today by any stretch of the imagination,
Yeah, nah,
but
not a good
how
game. Very
but
snoozer.
we know Denmark has quality. We know that they're probably better than Australia, and I want
I
to see
believe
how
they
this
drew
France.
against them last. I'm pretty sure they drew against them last 2018. They drew them in the group.
Yeah.
It was
And
1-1.
well, and they, speaking of them drawing, they drew today against Tunisia, which isn't a great result by any stretch of the
That's the
imagination.
best result. Yeah.
But I know that Denmark have quality players, and I want to see this midfield specifically get tested because I think Denmark has a good midfield. And that's the biggest question mark for me with this France team still. Tchouaméni and Rabiot. Rabiot has silenced the critics for a little bit because of his performance.
For just a little bit. Yeah.
But that's still, when I look at this France lineup, and I'm looking at it right now on the phone, it's just, that's the biggest question mark for me. That two-men pivot midfield of Tchouaméni and Rabiot, how are they going to hold up against the more quality teams? That's my biggest question mark. That question mark still remains after this game for me.
Yeah, I would have to agree. The France started out, on skates. Like Australia, that was a gorgeous goal. Great
It was.
cross in and just smashed it in. And you first see that, you're like, is the curse is in full effect. And like you said, France are like, chill out, man. Like, watch this. And they just, basically threw a party on them. And Mbappe was running the show. Dembele was running the show. Giroud was finally. That was the first time Giroud scored. He didn't score at all in the 2018 World Cup, even though he had such
Yeah.
a pivotal role. He didn't score. But this one,
Yeah.
he came out, got 2 goals, tied Thierry Henry, and just a full out great performance from France. But with them looking so great, they don't look invincible. And that was the main takeaway that I saw, that Australia were getting at them. They were creating some chances. They scored one, but they were still creating a couple good quality chances. And that started to, that's where I started to close the gap in between. I think England could beat this squad. I think, there's other teams that could give this team. It's not as one-sided as we might have thought it would have been, with
Yeah.
it being France. They're not as good as they were. And it's going to be interesting when we see them play Denmark and eventually get into the knockouts, because let's just say they're breaking the curse. I think that we could finally, unless all hell breaks loose, I think they're finally going to break the World Cup curse and make it out the group. Finally, I think the
Yeah.
past 4 World Cups, the champions have never gone, out the group, but France look like they're poised enough to do that. But after that, it's going to be interesting to see them play, some of the, top echelon teams in this tournament.
Yeah. You were always more high on France than I was. And obviously, I think a lot of you being so high on them when it was part of having Karim Benzema, obviously, who isn't part of the
Oh,
fold now. And
I told you that if, from what this team looked like, if they had Karim Benzema inserted in there, it wouldn't be fair.
yeah.
It would not have been fair. But with Benzema, unfortunately being out, it does make things a little bit more level. Just because, God have mercy, if this team would be fully firing on
Imagine they
all
had
cylinders with a
imagine they
Karim
had
Benzema,
Nkunku and
and
Benzema.
oh my God, it's just like, it's kind of like you gotta, like, they had to even the playing field, just because they're just that my God, that would have not been fair. That would just have not been fair.
No,
A fully,
it's
if France had every single player that they wanted, even going back to if they had Kante and they had Pogba,
oh
this
my
team,
god.
it's just like fantasy, man. This isn't fair. But now, unfortunately, we never want to see it come down to, like, oh, if they were healthy. But that's just reality of the game. People get injured, and this World Cup, a lot of players are injured.
Yeah.
But it just comes down to who can stay fit, and who can find their form the quickest, because right now you got to have your form. You got to find your form quickly, or you can put yourself in a hole. Like Argentina, they're in a hole right now, but they're
Yeah.
you're gonna have to dig yourself out of this. And France were able to avoid that. They're able to get
Yeah.
this one done, and I think they're gonna just win out. Really, I think they might, at worst case scenario, draw again with Denmark, but they're gonna make it out the group at the end. They're gonna
Oh yeah,
top the
no, they're
group
definitely
easily.
making it out of the group.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be interesting to see exactly how it plays out with them and Denmark, because that's probably the biggest test, for me
Yeah,
with this France team. How are they going to be against Denmark?
absolutely. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But I think with that wrapping out, I think we covered most of the pivotal games. But still sticking into the world of football, breaking news happened that Manchester United have reached an agreement to part ways with Cristiano Ronaldo. The saga has ended; it is over. Cristiano Ronaldo will no longer play for Manchester United, and he's now a free agent. When did we ever think we would say the words Cristiano Ronaldo is a free agent? I thought it'd never be said,
I
but
didn't. I never.
until
It's
until
crazy to even think
today,
about that.
until today. So I wanted to ask you right now, what do you think is next for Cristiano Ronaldo, and where do you think he's going to play? Where is he going to hang his boots? Where is the next club he's going to go to?
I think that Manchester United have dealt with this Cristiano Ronaldo situation bad. I said it from the beginning. I think Eric Ten Hag is slightly out of his depth. I think that he has to assert his dominance on the squad and prove that he deserves the respect. But disrespecting Cristiano Ronaldo is not the way of going about that for me. However, that ship has officially sailed. Let's not focus on the beef with Eric Ten Hag and things like that. I think with Cristiano Ronaldo, I think he still has a lot to offer to a top club. He's not the player that he once was when he was winning all those Ballon d'Ors and he was up there with Messi and they were going back and forth every year. He's not that guy anymore. He gets old. Players get old. Even the greatest, they get old. He's not quite what he was, but let's not act like he can't contribute to a top team. Everyone wants to make it out to be, oh, he can't press. He can't do this. He can't keep up in the modern game. He still scores goals. He scored 24 goals for Manchester United last season, 18 of them being in the Premier League. He's right up there with Harry Kane. We all, me and you, we both consider Harry Kane and everyone to be a top striker. Ronaldo is up there with them in goals in the Premier League, and all of a sudden we're out here saying Ronaldo is washed, this and that. Ronaldo can still contribute at a high level, and ultimately he's going to have some suitors of pretty much, a multitude of different clubs, I think. And not every club, because there's obviously some clubs who are buying into this belief that he's 100% washed and he can't press
Hmm.
and he can't keep up in the modern game and he's not the guy that he was and his wages are high, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, for me, I think it's looking like it could happen. If he's staying in the Premier League, ultimately, I think two options here. And one is probably slightly more likely than the other. The first option for Ronaldo in terms of where he should go next is Chelsea. He stays in the Premier League. Chelsea, Todd Bowley wants that guy who can
He
sell the
wants that
shirts.
superstar.
He wants a global superstar. And even at 37 years of age, Ronaldo is still that. He is going to sell an immense amount of shirts. He's going to bring popularity to the club. And ultimately, Todd Bowley being an American owner, that's what he wants at the end of the day. I think it's realistic. It could happen. Graham Potter has said, I guess, or in privately conversations, it's been said that he doesn't want him, but I don't think particularly that matters. If Todd Bowley wants Ronaldo, it's going to happen, and I think he does want Ronaldo, and I think it's not crazy for Ronaldo to want to stay in England. Does he want to move countries again? I don't know. I don't think it matters too much, but I think it's not unrealistic for him to stay in England, and he's still. I think, given the type of guy Ronaldo is, he wants to prove himself now in the Premier League again because people are writing him off. Ronaldo wants to prove the doubters wrong. Chelsea are going to come knocking. I think it's not crazy for him to go to Chelsea. And, as a fan of Chelsea, I think that would be a good move because, I think we need a true number 9, the guy who can bag the goals. He'd get Champions League football. And I think it's a move that can happen. It's just will it happen? I don't know. I think it's realistic. I think it's one of the ones. Ultimately, it's up to Ronaldo because I think Todd Bowley wants him. The second
Yeah.
move, and you've talked about it before, privately, Bayern Munich. I don't know if Bayern Munich want Ronaldo. They seem to be a well-oiled machine like always, but it's not crazy for me to believe that Ronaldo wants to prove himself in another league. That's another thing to hang his hat on over Messi. He would have proved himself in the Serie A, the Premier League, the La Liga, and then if he goes to Bayern Munich, he'll win titles and he'll prove himself in the Bundesliga. If that's what Ronaldo's looking for, he wants to win more trophies. He wants to kind of stat pad. He wants to show he can still score goals at a somewhat high level. He goes to Bayern Munich, he's going to absolutely set the league on fire, even at 37 years old. It's just, do Bayern Munich want him to in their project? Because Bayern Munich, they're always a look to the future type of team. And
Mm-hmm.
it just seems like that seems the more unrealistic option of the two for me, just because Ronaldo's kind of the exact opposite of a Bayern Munich type of move. They seem to always be looking for the youth and looking forward because they know that they're dominant. They want to sustain their dominance. They're not looking for players that are plug in and they're going to be good for 1 to 2 years. They're looking for guys that they can play for a multitude of years. They're looking for guys mostly from poaching the other players in the Bundesliga, but they're looking for guys that can get
Is
on
that yeah?
long-term deals. They're looking for youth. And it's I can't really remember Bayern Munich signing an older type of guy like Ronaldo is. You know, it's
It,
it could it
how
could
old was
happen.
Ian Robin when they got him? I think he was still quite young. How was Frank Ribery? Like those guys
Yeah,
were. I
they
can't really
had them for a
remember.
while.
They had him for a good
When they were
little
still
bit.
kind of youthful, they were. I don't think they were quite 23, but they were somewhat youthful.
Yeah.
Ronaldo is literally 37. It's not something I've ever seen Bayern Munich do, but I don't think it's crazy for Ronaldo to want to prove himself in a new league, still be able to bag the goals, compete at a high level, and ultimately have a chance to win the Champions League, because Bayern Munich, they're always going to be a good team. They're always going to have an opportunity to win the Champions League. Are they going to do it? They did it against 2020 in the Mickey Mouse COVID year, but they haven't really been able to do it necessarily as much as they probably should have given their quality. But with all that being said, it's not crazy for me to think that could happen. But if I gun to my head, pick what club he's going to out of those two, Chelsea, I think is the one where it's like he gets to stay at a high level, stays in the Premier League. He will prove himself again in the Premier League, make Manchester United kick themselves. I think for me, given the type of guy Ronaldo is, it makes the most sense. But I'm interested to see what you say.
Oh, Cristiano Ronaldo. How the tables have turned. Well, I think the only real teams that are thrown in this hat of the Ronaldo sweepstakes is realistically, like you said, Chelsea. I saw a bit shouts of Arsenal, but I really doubt it.
I doubt it.
I that's almost impossible. But I've seen Atletico Madrid thrown in there. I've seen Bayern Munich thrown
Atletico?
in there. Yeah, I saw a couple of people saying he could realistically go to Atletico. But it's more the people that sided with United with the whole idea, because they're like, oh, he would have went to City and he doesn't care about his ties with United. And it's like, I guess the same thing would be said that, he would go to Atletico Madrid because he doesn't really care about his playing for Madrid. And
Uh-huh.
I saw Madrid's name thrown in there a little bit, even though
Yeah,
I've seen Madrid come out and say that they plan to sign nobody, even though Benzema's injured and we don't know how long he's injured for, even though I think that's kind of stupid. I'm gonna answer this question two ways. I'm gonna give my two realistic, these are like, okay, these are probably where he's gonna go, and then the two dream scenarios that
a dream.
I think football would want to see. So I'm gonna start out with the two dream scenarios, and who better to tease this than Piers Morgan? Piers Morgan says, "What would you ever see yourself linking up with Lionel Messi and Paris Saint-Germain?" And I feel like it's not something that's completely out of this world. It's Paris Saint-Germain. It's what would Paris do to win? And I feel like it's a move Paris would maybe think of, but it all come down to they'd have to run it by the president. They had to run it by Mbappe. Do you want Ronaldo? And I think it would be a sight to see if we got the chance to see, Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo on the same
Ooh,
team. We finally
it
get to
would be.
see it. But I think that's a bit of a long shot. And the other dream one was, I want to see him come home. I want to see him back in Madrid. Obviously, Ronaldo's brought us so much glory. He's brought us everything. He's been the best player in the history of our entire club. But that one, like from what I've seen the club saying, and just the relationship Ronaldo has with Florentino Perez, I highly doubt it as well. I mean, Florentino Perez literally said this guy's stupid. That this guy, he's called Cristiano Ronaldo stupid. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think he's crazy to want Cristiano back. And even though as much as I'd want to see it, I don't think it's gonna happen. But the ones that I really think are gonna happen are the ones you mentioned. I think it's gonna be either Chelsea or Bayern. That is gonna be one of the two. And if it came down to one, I think he's going to Chelsea. Even though I've seen a lot of Chelsea fans mixed about it, that they don't want
Yeah,
Cristiano Ronaldo because just how Ronaldo treated United, that they think, like, from what he said about his players, he referred to some of his former teammates as rats. And it's like, that this is a guy that you maybe not want in your club. This guy wants to take the spotlight from everything. And he's narcissistic. He's this and he's that. But if he goes to Chelsea, it, I think it'd be a good move. But what does that really do for Chelsea in the bigger picture? I mean, does it make them a top four lock? I don't know. Maybe, possibly. How does it affect them in Europe? I doubt it changes I think they would finish in Europe, but it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see Ronaldo play for another team that's not United in England. But I think out of all the options, that's the one that's been catching the most traction. Todd Bowley? I'm sorry,
Todd Bowley.
I'm having a brain. Todd Bowley has wanted Cristiano Ronaldo even when he had Tuchel. When he had Tuchel, he
Yeah.
wanted
That was that
Todd
was that was
Bowley.
one of the main reasons why Tuchel ended up getting the sack, was because he
Yeah,
wanted Ronaldo and Tuchel said, "No, I don't want Ronaldo."
and this was something that I was telling you about when Todd Bowley got first assigned. That I think he's looking more into the shirt sales, into what is better for the club. And I don't
Shit.
think signing a 37-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo is perfectly what the club needs right now. But obviously, it can't hurt. Ronaldo said he would be willing to take a little bit of a pay cut in wages to stay in a top league. I don't know about that. We will have to see. But out of every team that's on the table, I think Chelsea are the most realistic option for Cristiano Ronaldo right now.
Do you give Bayern any hope in the ring?
Uh, I give him a shout, but I think they're kind of just a name that reporters have been kind of throwing out because you got to make news. And it's just like you said, it seems like a move Bayern wouldn't make. Is kind
Yeah,
of like
the philosophy
they
doesn't
they
seem to
they
align.
wouldn't, yeah. And just how they plan to play, I think almost to a fact, Atletico might be a better shout than Bayern at this moment. I think if you were to look at which club would want Ronaldo more, weirdly enough, I think Atletico would want Ronaldo more than Bayern Munich would want him. But
Uh-huh.
I doubt he goes. If he goes to Atletico, I won't know what to believe. It'll be literally the worst shit of all time. But yeah, I think Chelsea have the best shot.
And that's why it's one of those things, like when you really start narrowing down the list of like top clubs, that he could go to, it's a slim list just because there's so many top clubs that are kind of like already out of it per se. Like he's not going to Barcelona. He's not going to back to Real Madrid because of, the ship has sailed with Florentino Perez. Bayern
No,
Munich, for me, it's a possibility, but their philosophy of football doesn't line up with signing a 37-year-old Ronaldo. There's not another top team in the Bundesliga. So then you go to the French League, League One, PSG. They've already got the dream attack. Seems kind of unrealistic that
yeah,
they're going to get
you can't really fit him
Ronaldo.
in there.
Now, if Mbappe had left, then maybe it's a different story because
That's
then,
when. Oh yeah, that's when.
but that didn't happen. So it doesn't seem like that's quite the what's going to happen. So then it's like, okay, he has to stay in the Premier League. He's not going back to Serie A either. So then, okay, look at the Premier League. He was at Man United. He's definitely not going back there. Obviously, Man City, it's
Not
not going to
going City.
happen. Liverpool, not going to happen. Tottenham, not going to happen. Chelsea, obviously could happen, and then Arsenal. It might be between Chelsea and Arsenal, but I just don't think Arsenal are. And
Arsenal,
it's
there's
just
no chance. Just how they love their
he's
squad and
he's
shit. I feel
mentioned
like that would.
Arsenal. If Arsenal put their hat in the ring and they put a bit, they put a contract on the table, he would be tempted. I know Ronaldo would be tempted because currently they're
I
top of the
think.
title,
I think
top of the league, and they're
Ronaldo.
pushing for the
Ronaldo.
title.
Ronaldo would want to go to Arsenal more than Arsenal would want Ronaldo, because
I
just
agree with
just
that. But
I think
it's just
Arsenal are high on their players, and they don't see a use in Cristiano Ronaldo at this moment. But yeah, I get what you're saying, that they're the only other viable option. Because what do you think, Tottenham's gonna get Ronaldo? No,
that's not
I mean,
happening.
Like Newcastle going to get Ronaldo? They could afford him, but Ronaldo doesn't want to go to Newcastle. You know, it's
Yeah,
just like
exactly. Exactly, so it's like when you
I
really
think,
start narrowing down the options, it's like it's kinda Chelsea or bust, I feel like. And if
it is
Chelsea doesn't pull the trigger on him, then I don't know what's the next for Cristiano Ronaldo. He might be going to MLS.
MLS. Bring him to Inter Miami. David Beckham, call him up, son. Bring him to
Uh,
Miami.
that would be
But
a spectacle to see, but I don't think it's happening.
I don't think so. Not yet, at least. But like it's crazy to think about because we never think Ronaldo would even be in this situation that we'd be talking about what teams would want him. Like it's Cristiano Ronaldo. Everybody would want him, but it comes down to age. The same thing happened with Messi. I mean, Messi was basically for sale last season. PSG were not very high on him, and there's not a lot of people other than Barcelona who literally couldn't afford him because they're bankrupt. Not a lot of people really wanted Messi either. It's like
Yeah,
it's coming to the time to where you're going to see these players, these names in these free agency and in these transfer talks, and we don't. There's not a lot of people calling.
yeah, and it's crazy to think about because, for people like us and our generation, I mean, those are the guys. I mean, it's just it's unbelievable to think that it's almost gotten to the point where their careers have kind of faded, and it's the back end. Obviously, it's sad, but it's also time for the next generation of young players to step up. Like an Mbappe and a Jude Bellingham and players like that. But the last point I think I wanted to get your thoughts on with this whole Ronaldo situation before we get on to the other type of football. Do you think that this news breaking at this moment before Portugal's first game and before they've really had their show in the World Cup, do you think that this is going to alter Portugal and Ronaldo's performance in the World Cup?
No, I don't think Ronaldo cares. I think Ronaldo realistically only cares about Ronaldo. He doesn't really care about any other kind of noise that is going around with him because he's had to deal with it his entire career. I mean, there was a little bit of like things they had to clear up that it looked like you know uh, Bruno Fernandez was annoyed with Ronaldo a little bit, but they ended up I guess coming out and saying that it's not like that, that we're fine and that everything's fine, the team's working well. And realistically, we won't know 100% until we watch them.
Yeah,
We can't definitively say, but I can from my opinion, I don't think it will affect them. I think I still think Portugal have their work cut out for them to get first in their group because I think that they have probably for one and two to finish one or two, they probably have the most competitive because Uruguay has just as good as a chance Portugal to have to get first because they're both really, really good teams. I mean, Uruguay was the one to eliminate them from the 2018 World Cup. Like Uruguay is a very, very good squad, and they've gotten better since
yeah.
2018. So it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. But in the bigger picture, I don't think it would necessarily affect Ronaldo in any way.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think Ronaldo is 100% locked in on the World Cup. I think he's going to have a good World Cup. I said it before, and I still think that. I think Ronaldo is bound to have a good World Cup. And this news breaking at this moment, I think it is somewhat tactical for Manchester United, doing it at this time. But I don't think it's going to have any effect because I think Ronaldo, once that interview with Piers Morgan dropped, he had to know this was coming.
He already
He's
knew.
already
He was done. He
he
already knew
already
it was done.
expected it, when you're calling out the Glazers and you're calling out the manager, you're
And
calling
now the
out players,
Glazers are selling.
you're
Ronaldo's
calling
bigger
out
than the
players in the
club.
team. Ronaldo knew this was coming, and it's almost I don't think it has any effect, but it is crazy, speaking on your point, Ronaldo, I have to say that there has to be some correlation between the two, how much influence Ronaldo has, because Ronaldo calls out the Glazers one time. The fans have been on the
They're selling
Glazers
the
for,
club.
for years. The fans have said Glazers out. They've had protests outside Old Trafford. These fans, they have voiced their opinion on the Glazers for so long. Nothing happens. Ronaldo voices his opinion one time on the Glazers, and they're selling. I find it hard to
So we're
believe that
out.
there's
We're
no
done with this.
correlation between that. Ronaldo's influence is
I
almost
think it's the
unmatched.
circus that Ronaldo brought with it, and all the negative attention it brought to the Glazers is like, bro, I can't take this shit. This sucks. I want to sell. We want to
Yeah,
find another investment because you know when you have somebody like Cristiano Ronaldo with 500 million followers on Instagram, like one of the most just the biggest superstar in the world, just shitting on you. The press is not going to look good on you, and they're just
Yeah,
probably like, we've had enough. And this whole
they
football thing was nice and all, but it's time to get out.
they're just gonna, go back and chill with the Bucks, you know?
Get the Bucks. They should be worried about them right now. They should be trying to get them back.
Yeah, but, speaking of the Bucks, I think it's, the perfect time to transition from the beautiful game on the pitch to American football and the other type of football, and
America's football.
and obviously, you know, the NFL, we are getting ever closer to the rubber meets the road December. Well, it is December now. Well, it's about to be December. I mean, December,
About to
January
be December,
football.
yeah.
It's getting closer and closer to that time, and that means playoff time is coming. So it's about to be week 12 this upcoming week. But obviously, there were some key games and some interesting games that happened last week in week 11 that it's important to touch on. And obviously, first thing, Thursday night football, Packers versus Titans. I thought the Packers were going to be able to keep on their form that they showed against the Cowboys and keep that going against the Titans. Obviously, that didn't quite happen. I'm going to go ahead and pass this one off to you. What were your thoughts, reaction to this Thursday night game? Based on what happened.
You know, this is what I expected. I saw the Cowboys game as kind of a one off. Aaron Rodgers. You teams get up to play the Cowboys. I always expect that teams play always a little bit better. Unless you're the Vikings, you play a little bit better when you play the Cowboys. But you know, they went to play a very tough Tennessee team. We got to see Ryan Tannehill back. From he missed the last game versus Chiefs, I believe. They're playing
Yeah,
the rookie, but Tennessee
Malik
is
Willis.
they're yeah, Malik Willis. God, I never want to see that guy again. But you know, Tennessee's a tough team. They have a great defense. They have King Henry, Derrick Henry running down your throat, and it was just too much for Green Bay to handle. I mean, that Aaron Rodgers did not play the same way he played against the Cowboys. He just looked off, and even after the game, it was the first time we've ever seen Aaron Rodgers like really just kind of almost look like he accepted the fact that he's not what he used to be. He's not what he was last season. He looked kind of like not angry, just accepted the fact that he missed throws. He missed throws that he usually makes in his sleep. Like
Yeah,
there was some throws that he completely blew, and it's unlike Aaron Rodgers to do that. But I think we're starting to get to the fact that the road is starting to end for Aaron Rodgers as a top quarterback in this league, and I've been saying it's been over. It's over for the Green Bay Packers. The season's done. I
I
mean,
know
you
it's
might
over.
as well pack it up. It's over. You had to win this game. Realistically, you had to win every single game, but I knew Tennessee gives people problems. I mean, we saw them almost beat the Chiefs without freaking Ryan Tannehill, and Ryan Tannehill versus Green Bay Packers. He looked like Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he came out there with a vengeance. He was playing really really well, and and I mean, Derrick Henry always plays well for that Tennessee. I think
Even threw a touchdown.
Mike Verbal has yeah, he threw a touchdown. Mike Verbal has these guys always, locked in, and they're always, a playoff lock, and they're always going to be, a good little frisky playoff team. And
Yeah.
you know, that's the biggest takeaway I got from this game. That the Tennessee's they're going to be a frisky little team to watch in the playoffs.
Yeah, Tennessee is a team that you're not wanting to play come playoff time. It definitely not because given the way that they play the game, it's just a tough, gritty, hard nosed. What you expect from a Mike Vrabel led team, and I'm going to get into Mike Vrabel in a second here, but the focus for this has to be on the Packers because they had their chance. The world was watching. They put on a show against the Dallas Cowboys with their comeback. They had me convinced that they could potentially do something here, that they had found the formula, that Aaron Rodgers has turned the corner, and that this team, even though it's not the best Packers team by any stretch of the imagination, that they could find a way like they kind of always have in the past. But ultimately, they just didn't. And I have to put some uh blame on the Packers coach, LaFleur. I have to put a lot of blame on it because he knew the recipe for success. It was shown against the Cowboys. You have to run the ball with Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. You cannot have Aaron Rodgers throwing 35, 40 times in a game and expect to win like it's 2015 or 20 or even last year Aaron Rodgers. It's just not he's not the same guy. You cannot do you cannot have Aaron Rodgers throw 39 times and expect old Aaron Rodgers and expect him to pick the defense apart and expect a masterclass. You just can't. You have to have Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon running the ball. You have to have them doing their thing. Aaron Jones in this game, 12 carries for only 40 yards. AJ Dillon only 6 carries for 13 yards. That's not getting it done. You got 53 rushing yards between your top two backs. That
It's
is
not good.
not a recipe for success. And if you told me before the game that that was going to be the stat line for those two backs, I would have told you that the Packers lost by 50. They was lucky to be as close as it was because the recipe for success with the Green Bay Packers is they have to have the running game going. If they have the running game going, it opens up the options because the defense can't play the same type of defense. They can hit the play action. They can get Aaron Rodgers more time to throw, and you let Aaron Rodgers pick apart a defense, he can do that. But when the defense is just honing in on the pass because they know that the Packers are not having a good run game, he's not going to be that. He's not going to pick you apart when you're playing a heavy zone. You have to be able to run the ball so that the defense has to play more up, so that they have to respect the run. And then you're going to let Aaron Rodgers pick you apart when you're not playing zone defense, you're playing a man or something. Okay, it's much more realistic. But if Aaron Rodgers has to pick apart a Titans defense, which is really, really good, that's playing zone, expecting the pass, it's not happening. It is not happening. And that's ultimately what cost the Packers this game. It's not even saying that Rodgers had a bad game. He didn't throw any interceptions. 24 out of 39, 227 yards, 2 touchdowns. Obviously, when you throw 39 times, you'd probably like to have over 300 yards, but it's just one of those things. 15 incompletions. He missed throws that he typically makes. But for me, and you could put some of the blame on Rodgers because he's probably, also a factor in calling some of these plays. But for me, he has to know, and so does LaFleur, that this Packers team lives and it dies by the run game. And that's crazy to say because we've never really said that about a Green Bay Packers team. But they live and die by the run. And on Thursday, they died by the run. They did not get it going. And that's ultimately what cost them their season because now they got no chance at making the playoffs. It's over. Pack it up. Tank for the rest of the season and prepare for next season, get a good draft pick. That's what I'm saying with the Packers, but for the Titans, it was a dominant performance, going in, they did what they needed to do. Like you said, Ryan Tannehill was looking like Patrick Mahomes out there. I mean, he was absolutely lighting them up. 22 for 27, 333 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have 1 interception. Derrick Henry did Derrick Henry things, 28 carries, 87 yards, a touchdown. He also threw for a touchdown. Treylon Burks had a breakout game, 7 receptions for 111 yards. That's what the Titans have been missing, was a true receiver that can put up those types of numbers. It'll be interesting to see if he can keep that going. But for me, it's the better team won. I had hope that the Packers would be able to keep the momentum. They weren't. The better team won this game. The Packers, they are not a good football team. It's time to stop treating them as such.
It's time to pack it up.
They have Aaron Rodgers, but they are not a good team by any stretch. We know that by now. It's time for the Packers to be preparing for next season. But the Titans, it's one of those things, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. Are you taking them as a true contender in the AFC?
I wouldn't go as far to say that. I think they're always going to be a well-coached, solid defensive team. I think they're frisky, but as far as contender, no. There's too many good teams in the AFC to vault them to contender status.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. Like obviously, they're always pretty good, and they always have Derrick Henry, and they're always going to be well coached by Mike Vrabel. But I tend to agree, it's one of those things. They have a ceiling, and their ceiling is to be a consistent playoff team. They're going to make the divisional round. They might sneak into the AFC Championship game depending on the matchup, but they're not making the Super Bowl. They're not winning a Super Bowl. And that's not a slight against Mike Vrabel. If Mike Vrabel gets a couple more pieces onto this team, it would be scary.
Yeah.
It would be scary.
Absolutely.
Because, you're not winning a Super Bowl with Ryan Tannehill. You're just not. That so you could say the quarterback position is obviously the main thing. That's like, okay, if they had even a somewhat dynamic offense, the picture would be completely different for the Titans. But they play an old school style of football, and it works, but you know, they're not keeping up with the Chiefs. They're not keeping up with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah,
They're not keeping,
absolutely no.
yeah, for me, they're not even really keeping up with the Dolphins offense. It's just the AFC has high powered offenses. And sometimes you could say great defense beats great offense, but the Titans don't have the offense to keep up.
Yeah, no.
I think they would, like, the Titans defense might get some stops on them, but you can't stop these great offenses for so long. Eventually, they're going to get their points. It's just
They're gonna
inevitable.
figure it. They're
That's
gonna figure
that's
it out.
what's going to hold the Titans back. But I wanted to get your thoughts on Mike Vrabel specifically. Do you think Mike Vrabel is a top 5 potentially coach in the NFL?
I would say yeah. I think he sneaks in there in the five. I think just how he's able to consistently bring this team to the playoffs. It's always like the Titans are gonna be a playoff team. There's never really a doubt with it, and a lot of that has to come down to Mike Vrabel. I think he's outstanding, and he does great with what he has. And
Exactly. I
like you
agree with
said,
you.
if he has maybe added two more, maybe like a true one receiver and maybe a little bit better of a quarterback, we'd be having a different discussion that and the fact that they're contenders in the and AFC. But as of right now, I think he is a top coach. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think Mike Vrabel is an elite coach in the NFL. The Titans, they have one of those guys that you're going to want to keep it for many many years.
Yeah,
I don't see the Titans getting rid of Mike Vrabel anytime soon. If they do, it'll be a big mistake. But
it wouldn't
I
make
think
sense.
I think he is a top coach in the league. I hope that one of these years he gets a true elite quarterback. Maybe not even elite, just a good quarterback, better than Ryan Tannehill.
Good,
Not
yeah,
no
better than
disrespect to
Ryan
Ryan
Tannehill.
Tannehill, but he's not winning you a Super Bowl. He's not taking you. Look, you put Ryan Tannehill against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. You know who you're taking every game, 10 times out of 10.
Yeah.
The same thing goes with Josh Allen. Same thing goes, in my opinion, even with Tua. So I think that's ultimately what's going to hold back the Titans this year, and it's held them back in years past. It's going to continue to hold them back. But you have to give them credit. They're always going to be a good team, but they're never going to be a great team. That's just where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
It'd
I
be
would
interesting to
agree.
see how they're able to finish off the season, though. And I necessarily wouldn't want to play them come playoff time, but if you do, it's not the end of the world. They're
Yeah,
a
I
tough
mean,
team, but could be worse.
yeah, but moving on to the next, what we thought would be a very close game, but ended up just being an
Yeah,
absolute wipeout was the
yeah.
Cowboys versus the Vikings.
And I
And
and
this is
I
this is
wanted. I want I
this is the
want I want
game.
you to talk. I want you to
Okay,
talk
yeah,
on
yeah.
this first. I definitely want you to be able
Eh,
to talk on this first.
you picked the Vikings to win this game, correct? Well, I think when we're making our picks, it's somebody said,
Look,
who did you
yeah,
pick?
I picked the Vikings.
You pick okay, you picked the Vikings. So you just so happened to pick the Vikings when you picked the Vikings when the Cowboys got the biggest road win in the history of their franchise. Think back of all the great Cowboys teams, the Super Bowl winning Cowboys. They never beat a team this bad away from home. They absolutely demolished them. This was probably the most complete performance from a football team this entire year. Their offense was firing. Their defense was firing. They were able to hold Justin Jefferson to 3 catches for 33 yards. You know, just before the game before, we saw Justin Jefferson looking like Randy Moss versus the Buffalo Bills. We were like, this guy's
Yeah.
unstoppable. You could triple team him, you could quadruple team him, doesn't matter. The Cowboys were like, listen, watch this shit, and they just completely shut him down. Micah and the Marauders were eating. Micah, I think, got a banged up on his knee. He played through it. Hopefully, he's all right. I haven't seen any updates on that. That it's any worse than what it looked like. But other than that, the Cowboys, it's an understatement to say they dominated the Vikings. They murdered them. It looked like It looked like they're playing a high school team, to be fair. Like, just absolutely destroyed him. Kirk Cousins, had a horror show. They couldn't get a touchdown. They all they got were 3 measly little points. It got
Yeah.
to the point to where we were watching and they just took the game off. Like third quarter, they took the game off. We couldn't even watch it anymore. I had to pull up a stream just to finish out the game because they were like, it was like cutting away from like like a mass casualty event. It's like you guys can't look at this no more. Stop, cut the cameras. Like this isn't good. And obviously I'm not gonna act like I picked the Cowboys, but obviously I didn't pick them to win by this amount. But it's still surprising that they won by this amount, but I'm not surprised they won at the end of the day. I had the Cowboys winning because realistically, the Vikings, they weren't gonna go this entire year with just losing one game. They're gonna drop some games. They're not like we said, they can play good defense, but they're still a bottom ranked defense. They can play defense in little increments, little capsules of time. They can play good defense, but in the bigger picture here, they're not a great defensive team. They got a dog mentality, but sometimes the dog gets put down.
Yeah. What that to say that the dog got put down is an understatement.
Uh,
The
He's
dog got
buried.
shot.
They took him out back. They took him to the big barn in the sky. Like he's gone. Dog's gone.
Yeah. Obviously I picked the Vikings. A lot of that was I took into account the fact that the Packers, they dismantled the Cowboys, especially in the fourth quarter. And I thought the Vikings were going to keep on the momentum, especially coming off of a dramatic win against the Bills. But to be quite frank, the exact opposite happened at home, which is even more disgraceful.
Oh yeah.
Dak looked maybe the best I've ever seen Dak play.
I think this is the best game Dak's ever played in his career. This is the best Dak Prescott we've ever seen.
Dak absolutely lit up the Vikings. And I said this, I expected Dak, when he replaced Cooper Rush midseason, coming back from his injury, I expected Dak to elevate his game. I expected him to be maybe even the best Dak we've ever seen. This was the Dak I was expecting to see then. We didn't quite see it. If he can keep this up, it's going to be scary. Dak put on a show, 22 out of 25 passing, 276 yards, 2 touchdowns. And obviously, the stats would have been even worse, but they were beating them so bad, they had to take him out of the game.
They took him off.
Cooper Rush got back in the game. It was an absolute masterclass by Dak. But, the star of the show, Tony freaking Pollard. Oh,
Tony
my
Pollard.
God. 15 carries, 80 rushing yards, 6 catches, 109 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. And then Zeke, being the pairing, 15 carries for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns, mostly on the goal line. And everyone wants to make it out to be a big deal. Tony Pollard or Zeke, who should be starting, blah, blah, blah. It's a whole load of nothing. Why are we having this debate? The starting running back, it's a meaningless role. It's just who you get a tick on your resume that you started a game, but it means nothing. They are carrying the same amount of carries. And quite frankly, you could argue that Tony Pollard should be getting more carries based on what he's doing. But I think that the Cowboys are using these 2 backs perfectly at the moment because Tony Pollard is playing out of his mind.
Yeah, perfectly.
But, you give him any more of the rock, he's going to be gassed. He's not going to quite be as effective. You need Zeke and him to continue to be that 1-2 punch. 15 carries a piece is perfect because it allows, Zeke to get his touches, do his thing, be the power back, lead this football team like he has done in the past. He's a mental guy. He's a locker room guy. These guys respect Zeke. You got to have Zeke happy. And I'm glad that they're giving him the ball on the 1-yard line because he's their power back. And he's the guy that's going to punch it in from the 1-yard line, more so than Tony Pollard. No disrespect to Tony Pollard. He's a great back. But using Tony Pollard in the ways that Mike McCarthy has used him so far is perfect. And I've criticized Mike McCarthy a lot, especially after the Packers game. But the way he's using these 2 backs is perfect. And everyone wants to make it out to be that Pollard should be starting, blah, blah, blah. It's a whole load of waffle. It's just meaningless. It's a meaningless conversation. Who starts does not matter. Now, if the argument was that Zeke should be getting less carries and Pollard should be getting more carries, you could make that argument. But I don't think so. I think that they're using these 2 backs perfectly, the perfect amount of carries. And I think, I got to tip my cap to Mike McCarthy for what he's done with these two backs, because it's quite a 1-2 punch, and it's not a 1-2 punch that you want to face, especially come playoff time when running the football is so key. But it's easy to point out the greatness of this offense that we just saw, but also you got to tip your cap to this defense. We know how good this Cowboys defense is. We've raved about them all season. Micah Parsons, he's a defensive player of the year candidate. It's just it's what we come to expect. But nobody expected it to be this bad. Vikings have a solid offense. I don't think anybody expected them to be able to hold them to
Yeah,
only
man.
3 points.
Man, you have the best receiver in the game, and arguably the best receiver in the game.
Exactly.
You don't really see this happen. Yeah.
This Cowboys defense locked them up. They kept Dalvin Cook under wraps. They made Justin Jefferson look like Casper the Friendly Ghost. He wasn't even there. 3 catches for 33 yards. He wasn't even there pretty much. You might as well have you might as well just not played. Go play some Madden at home or something. I mean, you just might as well have stayed home. But it's just, and obviously, Kirk Cousins, his stat line is looking absolutely terrible.
Oh
12,
God.
12 passes completed, 23
Take
attempted.
the chains off, Kirk Cousins. Take
105 yards, 0 touchdowns. I mean, Jesus, that's just absolutely terrible. And obviously, that's not including the strip sack, because he did lose a fumble. And for me, the game, I knew that it might be over as soon as that strip sack happened, because it just seemed like the Cowboys were just the better team. And this leads into my next point. I want to get your thoughts on this, but I kind of thought this, my opinion maybe might have changed after the Bills game, because it was a performance that, okay, the Vikings have kind of proved themselves, but I wasn't 100% convinced. And now after I've seen this, I'm all but convinced pretty much. The Minnesota Vikings are fraudulent. They're a fraudulent 8-2 team. They're like they are not as good as their record shows that they are. Ultimately, they're going to make the playoffs handily. They're a good team, but they're not a great team. They're not a Super Bowl level team. And for me, when I think about my top contenders in the NFC, even though the Vikings have one of the best record, I don't put the Vikings in that category. I'm taking the 49ers before I take the Vikings. I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles before I take the Vikings. And I'm damn sure taking the Dallas Cowboys before I take the Vikings. So, in a sense, the Vikings are fraudulent, because they are not as good as their record shows that they are. People were talking about them, oh my God, they're going to the Super Bowl. Kirk Cousins, look, Kirk Cousins is not taking
Kirk
the Super Bowl.
Cousins.
It's not happening.
No,
The Vikings, they're a good team. They have a good foundation, but they still have some pieces that they need. They are not quite that team that they're going to perform in the playoffs. They're fraudulent. And I wanted to get your thoughts. Do you think that the Vikings are fraudulent?
I think it's harsh to say they're fraudulent, but I think their record is misleading. It's very misleading to be even just 8-2. It makes you read that and you're like, oh, this team's got something, and I think that they can on their day they can be I almost put them in the same a little bit like with the Titans. They're a frisky playoff team. I mean that's what I've
That's
always
a good
looked at
comparison.
them this entire even when they were still before this loss, I had them as their ceiling, maybe the championship game, but at most I think they'd get out the first round. But that's just about it. Like I never really had the expectations. There's a lot of people, oh, the Vikings should be in ESPN's contenders for the Super Bowl. No, they shouldn't have. I said, no, they were never that. Like because this is all the same. We've seen this all before. We saw the Steelers go 11-0, and then they got bounced the first round. Yeah, it's like you have to, people have to be just smarter with you have to just look at it realistically, because like records can be misleading. The people are act like records have never lied before. Like it's just the Vikings are not as good as their record says. And I'm not saying they're horrible. I'm just saying they're not a Super Bowl contender. Not a lot of teams are Super Bowl contenders, man. Like it's not a slap in the face to Vikings fan to say you're probably not making the Super Bowl. Cause shit, did you think you're gonna have this record before the season started? No, you didn't. Be happy where you are, man. Like it's you're gonna be go to the playoffs and you might get out the first round. Be happy with that. because that's about as best as you're getting. You're not going to the damn Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. I don't know how y'all thought I don't think, even if you put Randy Moss out there, Randy Moss ain't carrying Kirk Cousins to no damn Super Bowl. That's not happening.
No.
So I think the rose covered glasses have to come off. The reality has to set in, because the beating the Cowboys put on you, that shit doesn't go away. That's on you forever, because
No.
you let the Cowboys put a record on you. That's the biggest road win of their entire franchise. And as decorated and as, tenured as the Cowboys are, how old the damn franchise is, to be that team that you're known for. Oh, they beat you and it was on your home field. It's just like, that's something that's going to stick with you for a long time. And like you said, I don't see them beating the 49ers. I mean, right now, I don't see a lot of teams beating the 49ers, but,
What I wanted to
I
get into
think
next.
that's going to be, this a little bit off. I'm excited to see, a possible rematch of Cowboys and 49ers, because, these teams are almost completely different. I mean, the Cowboys defense looks transformed, and the 49ers offense looks just almost on another level. I mean, it's
They got
it's
Jimmy G
looking
looking
very
like
frisky.
Joe Montana out
Jimmy
there.
G Jimmy G looking like Joe Montana, man. He's turned back, but you know what's more likely to happen? The Cowboys to turn back to the old Cowboys, or Jimmy G to turn back to Jimmy Gag? Who knows? We're gonna have to see. This is the beauty with sports, and that's what we're here to watch. We're gonna be here to see it all.
So do you think that the Cowboys, given this result, but also given, what happened against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, are you taking the Cowboys serious as a Super Bowl contender?
As of right now, no. This entire year, I think I've stuck with the idea that I didn't really think they're Super Bowl contenders. I think they're, it's almost I sound like a broken record. There's a lot of great teams. Not everybody's going to be a Super Bowl contender, and I think that's what they are. They're a really good team, but they're missing one piece, and it looks like they're missing an Odell size piece. I think that's the only thing we're going to get into a little more. That's the only thing I think they're missing. The problem with the Cowboys is consistency. They're not consistent enough, and most of it comes down to their consistency with offense. They've had a trouble that much with the defense. Usually, you see their defense will stall if their offense stalls, because I mean, shit, you're just having the defense go out and out. You're going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. If your offense isn't clicking, you're going to affect your defense. But if they're able to, Michael Gallup looked like he's finally coming back a little bit.
Mhm.
Finally, we have to talk about Michael Gallup look like he's got knocked again. Please, God, no more. I don't want to hear Michael Gallup looks like he's limping. Please, no more, man. Just keep this guy so he can play a couple games. But
Yeah.
I believe they're one piece away. There's one guy. Jerry knows who he needs, and they're tweeting at him. They're tweeting at him, and he says they're looking good. So we'll just have to
I,
see.
I find it interesting that you said that, because I kind of, would have expected you to, fully go all in, because to be quite honest, I think the Cowboys are definite Super Bowl contenders as of right now. They are almost a complete football team, and like you said, they do lack consistency in some ways. However, from what I'm seeing, Dak just played his best game, arguably, of his career. And we have seen Tony Pollard. Oh my God. I mean, do I have to say again
He's
how good he
transformed.
was? And,
He's been
Zeke,
playing good this entire season.
Zeke and Tony Pollard, this 1-2 punch, it's elite.
Probably the best
And
1-2 punch in the league.
exactly. So it just comes down to, is Dak going to be consistent, and is the rest of the offense going to remain consistent? Because I have no question marks about this Cowboys defense. They are so good. They are elite. This defense is Super Bowl worthy. It's just, is the offense going to
Is the
be
offense, yeah.
consistent? And I have a feeling that this in momentum has kind of let me down recently, because it's part of the reason why I picked the Vikings. But I think that the Cowboys are going to be able to keep this up. I think that they might have found the blueprint. They might have turned the corner. And also, I think that they are going to sign Odell. And that leads me into my next point that I want to ask you. At this very moment, Do you think the Cowboys are the favorites to sign Odell, and will they sign Odell? And if not, then who will?
At this moment, I can't see him going anywhere else. It's like it's written in the stars. The biggest team in the league signing the biggest player, not the best player, but the biggest, most followed player. It's like written in the stars, a match made in heaven that these two would come together. And I think Odell sees this team similar to the way he saw the Rams last year, that this team just needs a little bit more, need a little push, and he knows he can do that because we saw what Odell did for the Rams last year when they won the Super Bowl. He it was a little bit of a slow start, but when the playoffs hit, he was running, he was firing. I mean, I think he ran for like what? He ran for a buck against the Bucks.
Well, here,
You know,
here,
it's
here. With the Rams, Odell, he had 48 catches, 593 yards, 7 touchdowns, including 2 catches for 52 yards and 1 touchdown in the Super Bowl.
yeah, it's and I think he sees this, like I said, the same way he sees these Cowboys, that they're just one guy away, and just how the locker room would be ecstatic that you get Odell. They're already sent a campaign to get this damn guy, and
Mhm.
Jerry Jones said they have a meeting with them. It's going to come down to a number, and it's going to be, is Odell willing to accept the offer Jerry offers him? And it's tough to say what it will, because Jerry is usually, he's a little stingy with players that he hasn't drafted. He doesn't really like, going into the free agency. But for Odell, I think you have to, because if you get Odell, you have CD, and you have Michael Gallup back. My God. And you have the 1-2 punch and Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott, and you have Dak playing. He doesn't even have to play like he did versus the Vikings. He playing semi decent. It's like, my God, what this offense is revolutionary because
100%.
you have Odell out there. He pulls a little bit off of CD. So CD's now doesn't have 100% of the attention, and now they're starting to split it. And Odell's an elite route runner, and I think with how technology is, Odell's going to be fine after this surgery. How technology and everything's developed. Back in the day, maybe you would say that this would be a real like would be a detriment to his career. Tearing what he tear an ACL?
Yeah.
I believe he teared an ACL. Yeah, with just how those construction surgeries have advanced, I think he'll be fine. He'll go back to be similar to what he was at the Rams, and if he was, this Cowboys, I mean, I've this entire year I have not budged on my Super Bowl picks of Bills Bucks, but if Odell goes to the Cowboys, I would strongly consider. I think they beat the Bucks. I mean, obviously you don't rate the Bucks highly, but in a sense, if we're talking about you, I think that whoever you picked to go to the
Oh
Super Bowl,
God.
the Cowboys beat them. You picked the
My
Rams.
pick ain't even
Yeah,
making
okay.
the playoffs.
Okay, yeah, they're not making it. So yeah, I think 100% the Cowboys would be easily would vault themselves to, in my standards, like just a great team to Super Bowl to be in the Super Bowl. That would be a lock in to an extent, because that would just solve almost their biggest problem. I thought they had a problem replacing Amari Cooper, and you get Odell, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, more than good enough, especially the how leaps and bounds this defense has taken. And it's just, if they get it, it's scary hours for the league. It's, I mean, the Cowboys haven't been to the Super Bowl in 20, 30, 40 years. How long has it been? And
The
we weren't even
80s, right? I think
alive.
it's the
The-
80s, yeah.
Dude,
My
I
dad
mean,
was in his
like my
20s.
my dad was a teenager, man. I don't even think he was in this country at this point. Like, this is how long ago this was. And they're just, they're one number away, and I think they're looking at the range of, like a Michael Gallup contract, 20 million, 22 million. And it depends how long term of a deal you want to give Odell. But realistically, Cowboys, this is your best shot. You might as well
Right.
plunge. Like, what else are you waiting for, man? Like,
That's what I was
who
gonna say.
knows how long you're gonna have this defense for? Like, Micah could get hurt. any week. Realistically, he could bump his knee and be gone for the rest of the year. Or next season, he could be gone for that season. You have to do it now because there's no point in waiting now. You got to do it now, and especially Odell's a free agent. You're not giving up any picks. You
No, you're
just
not.
got to splurge, man. You got
You
to
just gotta
do
pay
it.
the money.
And this is going to be real telling to how Jerry Jones says. He says, I remember the big quote. You guys do not know how big of a check I would write to win a Super Bowl. Jerry, let's see. We're gonna see how much you're willing to spend to win the Super Bowl because this is your shot. This is it.
I tend to agree with you. I think that Odell is going to be Cowboys bound. I think it's the stars are aligning, similar to what you said. It makes the most sense at this moment. The Cowboys, they might be that one piece away from being true contenders, and Odell might just be that piece. We know how good their defense is, and if there's any point at their offense that we're saying, okay, they could use a piece there, it's the wide receiver core. And ultimately, you add Odell, it's going to be telling to see, or it's going to be interesting to see how he comes back from his surgery. But I think he's going to come back and be the same old Odell, like you said. And I think Odell on the Cowboys would take this team up a notch. And I already consider this team a very, very good team, but I think he takes them up another level. And I think if Jerry spends the money and he writes the check and he gets Odell like he should, they will make the Super Bowl. I think it'll be between them and the 49ers because I rate the 49ers so highly.
I think
It's
without Odell, I don't think they beat the 49ers. But with Odell, they beat the 49ers.
yeah,
I
I
think
think
it
that
literally comes down to that.
right now for me, my favorites in the NFC is the Cowboys and the Niners. And that's even if they don't get Odell. That's my two favorites. Now the Cowboys add Odell, I have to give the Cowboys the edge. The only reason that you could not give the Cowboys the edge is because you think that they're going to choke again because that's kind of in their history since the 80s.
It's
But I
kind
don't
of
think that's going to happen. And ultimately, Jerry even said it after the game. He said that this is a Super Bowl team. And he said, and he, like you said, he was willing to spend, or he said he's willing to spend whatever it takes. There's nothing stopping you. You have to make this signing. If you are serious about making the Super Bowl and potentially winning it, Jerry Jones, you have to sign Odell Beckham Jr. I don't care the cost. I don't care what he wants. You have to make this. You have to make this signing. There's no excuse for it. If, ands, or buts, there's no excuse. There's no
I
reason.
mean, the players are tweeting out this damn guy. I mean, you have Micah tweeting him out. You have everybody, basically begging this guy, said, please make the right decision. Just imagine what this would do for the locker room. The fact that they've
Oh,
already been campaigning and you reward them with, we got you guys Odell Beckham Jr. Just the aura of Odell is gonna be like, we have this guy, we have Odell, we have the biggest star in the game, and we are the biggest team in the country. It's just is going to be leaps and bounds better for the offense, and it's going to help out even though for the defense because you're not going to have as many 3-and-outs as you would if you didn't have Odell.
if Jerry does not make this move and gets Odell Beckham Jr., I'm gonna come on here and rip into him. I'm just letting you know now. This is
No,
this is a this is a telling moment for Jerry
absolute
Jones.
disgrace if he doesn't.
This is a very telling moment because he always says how bad he wants to win a Super Bowl, and the NFC is wide open to a certain extent. The Eagles, they're a solid team. For me, like I said, it's between them and it's between the Eagles, the 49ers, and the Cowboys. But I consider the Cowboys and the 49ers both a little bit better, especially if they get Odell. The Cowboys are probably the best of the bunch for me. But it's open.
Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys, this is their best chance that they've had in years. Years. They have not had this type of opportunity to realistically get this far in the playoffs, potentially make a Super Bowl. It hasn't happened. They haven't had a clear-cut opportunity like this almost ever, since the 80s. This is it. This is it. Jerry Jones, like I said, you have to make this move. If you do not make this move, it is a disgrace. You've let Cowboys Nation down if you don't make this move. You've basically slapped your team in the face. You've said that basically that you're not a man of your word because all you talk about is how bad you want to win the Super Bowl. This is the guy you need to win the Super Bowl, potentially to just make the Super Bowl. And if you don't pull the trigger on this move, it's a disgrace.
Absolutely, I agree. Because
Like
it
part,
would be just be so contradictory what he's been saying, you know? It's just like all he talks about. I mean, literally, you can't get Jerry Jones in an interview or post game without him talking about how badly he wants to go to the fucking Super Bowl, you know?
well, this is it. Exactly. This is
This
it.
is it.
This is your
This is
opportunity.
it.
He might not get this opportunity again. So look,
I mean, who
it-
what other wide
as we
receivers are gonna
saw,
be, you know?
with the Los Angeles Rams, Super Bowl windows are so small. You're like unless you've got Patrick Mahomes, your Super Bowl window of realistic chances to win a Super Bowl, it's very small. If you have a chance and you see that you're maybe one piece away, two pieces away, you have to pull the trigger and make that move because you do not know what's going to happen next season. Micah Parsons could get injured. Dak Prescott could tear his ACL. I'm not wishing it on him, knock on wood, but things happen in the NFL. And realistically, this is looking like the stars have aligned. The NFC is not looking quite as strong. The Cowboys might be the best team in the NFC, especially if they get Odell. And if you don't pull this trigger on a chance, a golden opportunity, it's basically like the leprechaun has just found the end of the rainbow and he's got the pot of gold. It's basically what this is. And basically, if you do not pull this trigger, it's just slap in the face to the players, Cowboys Nation, and it's so contradictory. It'd be an absolute disgrace. But
Yeah.
I think eh, I think Jerry Jones is going to pull the trigger on this. I would be shocked if he doesn't, and that's why if he doesn't, I'm going to be on here ripping his ass.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
going to
Yeah,
be on here
absolutely.
ripping into Jerry Jones. But I
Look at
think he's
Jerry
going to pull the
Jones.
trigger on this. I think as long as Odell wants to come, which it seems like he does, and I think that it's not a done deal, but I think it's inevitable at this point.
It looks like the highest possibility because what's the other option? The Giants? God, don't go to the fucking
Like the
Giants,
Bills.
man. No, I mean, after that snow, hell no. God, no. No way. No, 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 no way. After that snow and how they've been
And why,
playing,
why
no,
why would he want to go to a loaded AFC when he could go to the Cowboys in the NFC? It wouldn't make any sense for me.
yeah, it's which team looks like the most like the same situation the Rams were in? It's
The
it's the
Cowboys.
Cowboys. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
time will
I would
tell with
agree.
that. Moving forward from one team that is looking like Super Bowl contenders to one team who we know are Super Bowl contenders, the Kansas City Chiefs. They played Sunday Night Football against the Chargers, and
Great
you
game.
know it was a great game. It was it's one of those things when the Chiefs and the Chargers when they play against each other, you're expecting a classic. It's always going to be a high scoring game. It's always going to be
Yeah, it's a
good.
shootout.
The shootouts between Mahomes and Herbert, they're always good. But I'll pass this one off to you. Your initial reaction to this game, as a neutral.
Yeah, you know, I think it was just telling to see what Kansas City are. I mean, they're just proven to what they've always been. I mean, we thought they take a step back and they've just completely decided, you know what, that's not what we're doing. We're the best that we've always been. And
Yeah,
with Tyreek, no Tyreek, it doesn't matter. We have Travis Kelsey and we'll string some wide receivers, we'll make it work. No Juju Smith doesn't matter. We'll make it work. We'll find a way. We'll make things work and we'll win games. And that's what they're doing. I mean, against this Chargers team, yeah, these Chargers have been, a letdown, but they're still a great team. They're still pretty good. And they always get into shootouts. And Mahomes went for 329 with 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, to Justin Herbert's 280 with 2 touchdowns, but 1 interception. And I think that's what is really the main difference with this team, that one team has Patrick Mahomes and one team does not have Patrick Mahomes, and a little bit one has Kelsey and one doesn't. But I think it was just another defining win into their run into, this team has Super Bowl aspirations, and that's, they're just proving more and more why they are Super Bowl contenders.
no, 100%. They've proven once again why they're a force to be reckoned with in the AFC. I expect them, as things currently stand, to get that number one seed, which pretty much, I mean, the Kansas City getting the number one seed means it's going to be tough because going into Arrowhead in the playoffs is not an easy task for anybody. Josh Allen was so close to being able to do that, but ultimately he couldn't finish the job. So ultimately, it's one of those things. Patrick Mahomes, once again, he showed why, he's for many people. And, and I said last week, Tua, he's looking like the MVP. It's
It's
been
like
between
it's yeah, it's going by week right now, right? Right now,
right
Patrick
now.
Mahomes leading MVP.
Yeah, right now, Mahomes is he's taking it back. After this performance, Mahomes has taken back the MVP award because, like you said, 329, 3 touchdowns, and he got his help. Obviously, it's a little bit helpful when you have the greatest tight end of all time. We're gonna get into that, Travis Kelce, playing at the peak of his powers. 6 catches, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns, but also, and this is something that doesn't always happen. He got help on the running game. The running game was there for him this game. Isaiah Pacheco, 15 carries,
Yeah,
107 yards,
Pacheco played really well.
7.1 yards per carry. And that just tells me a little bit that, the Chargers defense, obviously they have injuries, so it's not quite that Chargers defense we expected, but
Really,
they're
really
not
enough,
that
you
great.
predicted that, and was
Yeah,
we
yeah,
talked about even before the season started that the Chargers have a lot of people that are tend to be injury prone, and
injury prone.
we kind of hope that they didn't, but I mean it's just the reality of what's going on that it's
Yeah.
hard to keep all these guys healthy at once.
I mean, Pacheco is the first 100-yard rusher for a Kansas City Chiefs since week 4 of last year, which that's a mind-boggling
That's
stat
crazy.
because you need a good rushing game for the most part to be able to win in the NFL. But the Chiefs, they kind of do it by committee, and obviously when you've got Patrick Mahomes, you'll be all right. But ultimately, my focus, look, it was a great game by the Chiefs. It was a great game-winning drive. And, the Chiefs did what I expect them to do. I expected them to win that game, and quite frankly, that's why, it's what I expected. It's what the Chiefs have made me expect, and I'll get into Travis Kelce specifically, but I want to put my focus on the Los Angeles Chargers because once again, Justin Herbert could not get it done in a game that he could have proved himself a little bit more. Look, he beats Patrick Mahomes there and this Chiefs, dynamic offense, and he's able to get the win, the narrative starts to change a little bit. However, this Justin Herbert narrative that he can't quite get it done when it matters most is going to continue. Ultimately, this season, this Chargers team has not been what we expected. Part of that is due to injuries, but also part of that is just due to, in my opinion, bad coaching. And, is Justin Herbert in the absolute best scenario? On paper, before the season, yes, he was. Now, looking at this roster and how injuries have played out and everything, he's not. And I'm not saying Justin Herbert is a bad quarterback. He had 280, like you said, 2 touchdowns. He had only 1 interception.
Hmm.
But he's overrated. Justin Herbert is overrated at the end of the day because people they thought he's the best quarterback in his
Maybe
draft
yeah,
class,
be a
better
tough,
than
yeah.
Tua, better than Joe Burrow. In my opinion, I'm taking Joe
He's
Burrow
looking at
and I'm taking
he's looking at
Tua.
like the third. Yeah, he's looking
I'm
at
taking
he's number
Tua
2
and
right
Joe
now.
Burrow over Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert cannot get it done when it matters most. And this is going to be telling because right now the Chargers they're on the verge of not making the playoffs again, which would be a complete and utter failure. It would be a complete failure for this Chargers team, even with the injuries, to not make the playoffs. Because you have arguably, before the season, people were saying you got one of the best quarterbacks in the game. That's what they were saying. I wasn't saying it, but people were saying it. So,
You were kind of believing it though. To be fair,
well,
yeah,
I
you
believed
had
in
an
the
all LA final. You had
I
an all
believed in
LA
I
final.
believed in the Chargers, but that's also because of the defensive adjustments that they made. They brought in Khalil Mack. They had J.C. Jackson. It was hard for me to not look at this Chargers team on paper and think that they were going to go to the Super Bowl. But Justin Herbert has not looked like the guy I expected him to be. Tua's genuinely looked better. Joe Burrow has continued to look better. But also, the defense has been injured, and it just hasn't quite been as good. This Chargers team is just not as good as I thought they were going to be. But, so this is Justin Herbert's 3rd season. He hasn't made the playoffs his first 2 seasons. A list of first-round quarterbacks in the last 10 seasons to have made the playoffs within his first 3 seasons. This list consists of Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, RG3, Lamar Jackson, Andrew Luck, Patrick Mahomes, Marcus Mariota, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Mitch Trubisky, Deshaun
Mr.
Watson, and
Trubisky.
Carson Wentz. Now, the list of first-round quarterbacks to miss the playoffs within their first 3 seasons. Blake Bortles, Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, Ryan Tannehill, Jameis Winston, and potentially, if it continues, Justin Herbert. He is a fraud. Justin Herbert is a fraud. He can't take his team to the playoffs. He cannot take his team to the playoffs. And I don't want to hear it about the situation. Oh, the coaching is bad. Oh, Keenan Allen has been injured. Oh, this guy's injured. The greatest of the greats, they're able to lead their team and take them to the playoffs. All I'm asking you is to take them to the playoffs. It's not like I'm saying you got to win the Super Bowl. Just take them to the playoffs. And you haven't even been able to do that. And it's looking like, as of right now, he's not going to be able to do that. And I might eat my words, and the Chargers might sneak into the playoffs. But as of right now, I don't think they're making the playoffs. And if Justin Herbert gets added to this list, he's a fraud. He's a fraud. But ultimately, Justin Herbert, he's going to have to up his play in order for the Chargers to make the playoffs this season if they do want to. Look, he makes a couple flashy throws. He had that 70-yard bomb that he threw in the first half to be able to give the Chargers the lead. But his overall play, it just hasn't been good enough. Mahomes looked like in a whole different stratosphere to him. He just looks like a so much better player, in my opinion. But, part of maybe the reason why Justin Herbert isn't quite looking as good as potentially he should, given everything, Brandon Staley. This guy's more of a fraud than Herbert. How does this guy have a job? This guy might be the worst head coach in the NFL. He's worse than Nathaniel Hackett. This guy is an absolute horrible coach. If this guy does not get fired at the end of the season, I'm going to be shocked. I'm going to be shocked, even if they make the playoffs, because every game, it's always something where it's like, oh man, Brandon Staley might have cost the Chargers again. He might have made a mistake coaching. This game, he had a 4th and inches where he should have gone for it. Instead, you punt, you give the ball back to Patrick Mahomes playing the field position game. Patrick Mahomes, what does he do? He dices you up and he gets the touchdown. You have to play aggressive to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. You're giving the ball back to Patrick Mahomes. I don't care if you put him on the 1-yard line. You make the perfect punt. You coffin corner his ass. The perfect punt at the 1-yard line. It doesn't matter. It's Patrick Mahomes. He can take it 99 yards. And that's what he did. It's just every week there's another mistake with Brandon Staley. He's an absolute terrible coach. Get Brandon Staley out of there. That's why I can't even be as harsh on Justin Herbert as I fully want to, because I know how bad Brandon Staley is. However, I still think Herbert is slightly fraudulent. I do. But Brandon Staley is even more of a fraud. He's an absolutely terrible coach. Look, the reason why the Chiefs are where they are and the Chargers are where they are, Andy Reid, Brandon Staley. You got to have a good coach.
Leaps and bounds. So
you got to have a good coach. I can't
disagree.
He's just the fact that you gave Brandon Staley this team. Let's just say that everyone was healthy. You got some of the best in the NFL. You got J.C. Jackson. You got Khalil Mack. You got Joey Bosa. Obviously, you got Justin Herbert. You got Austin Eckler. And they're all getting coached by this fraud, Brandon Staley. I mean, oh, my God. But my Super Bowl pick is in the mud, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's my. Yeah. It's just it's funny that it's funny. Both of my Super Bowl teams are on the verge of not making the Super Bowl, or not even making the playoffs. I mean,
this is something we joked about. What was it today? Even when we're talking about the World Cup, that I picked Argentina and and France, and it was when France were losing. I was like, what would be the odds that both my teams don't make it out the round at all? You're two at the LA Super Bowl that you chose. It looks like they might not even make it to the playoffs.
Well, the Rams have no chance, and like I said, I don't think the Chargers are either. I don't think the Chargers.
And the Chargers, they're gonna need a lot of things to go right for that to happen. But no one could have predicted the Rams have been this bad. It's just a complete wash. It's like Aaron Donald, man. If I'm Aaron Donald, I'm like, why the hell did I come back for this? What the hell? Should have retired, man. Retired on top. But obviously, hindsight 2020, no one would have known that this would have happened. But it's just how shit goes. Just how it
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah.
But still on the Chiefs. You're talking about Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce having a huge game, actually surpassing Gronk in most consecutive, I mean, not consecutive, but most total 100-yard games for a tight end. And the conversation has to be brought back up again, because I think I've never directly asked you. I think you mentioned it. I already think I know your standing, but is Travis Kelce the greatest tight end of all time?
Travis Kelce, man, he continues to put on a show every single week. Travis Kelce is the greatest tight end of all time. He has made the loss of Tyreek Hill in this Chiefs offense look minuscule. He's filled the void. Obviously, he was already there, but he's taken an even more advanced role in this offense and being the focal point without Tyreek Hill. And he's done it to a T. I mean, he absolutely lit up the Chargers. And for the most part, he had Derwin James on him. And he put up those numbers with Derwin James on him. I mean, my God, it was just an absolute killing. 6 catches, 115 yards, and 3 touchdowns, obviously, and including the game-winning touchdown. It was just one of those things. That particular game, it showed how good he is. And we've seen it all of this season. We've seen it in previous seasons. The only competition is Gronk, and prime Gronk was something special. It really was. But this Travis Kelce season for me, and I know he's going to be able to continue to do this in years to come, which also plays into my thought process a little bit of him going to be the greatest tight end of all time. He is the greatest tight end of all time. He's more dynamic, I would say, than Gronk. He moves better than Gronk. He's able to run faster than Gronk down the field. I don't think that's crazy to say. Obviously, Gronk was able to hit big plays, but you can hit Travis Kelce on a slant, and he'll take it 50 yards for the touchdown. He took 130 yards for the touchdown for the Chiefs, I think twice in that game. So it's one of the things, he is able to take the ball when he gets it in the middle of the field and run with it after the catch. More so than Gronk, he was just tough to tackle. Travis Kelce is tough to tackle, but he's also elusive. He gets so open. I don't know how this happens, and this is a whole other point. I do not know how Travis Kelce gets so open, but he's either the greatest route running tight end of all time, or teams just I don't know. Teams just they forget to cover number 87 wearing white and red. I don't know. He's always so open, and that just goes to show his greatness. Obviously, you can't even really make the argument that he's got Patrick Mahomes, the greatest quarterback in the game. Gronk had Tom Brady, so it's like they both are wearing elite situations. They both had great coaches, great quarterbacks, and that's why they're in this conversation as being the best 2 tight ends ever. But if we're playing we're playing pickup football, and I got prime Gronk and I got prime Travis Kelce. Who do I want to be my tight end? Give me Travis Kelce.
I'm not willing to give it up yet. I think Travis Kelce is the greatest receiving tight end of all time. I think, I think he's a little bit more of a 6'5", 250-pound wide receiver masquerading as a tight end. Don't get me wrong. I'll give it to him. He's the greatest receiving tight end of all time. But just from what everything Gronk did, that Gronk was as good as an offensive threat, the most dominant player I've ever seen in my entire life, and the fact that he could block. Kelce could chip. He could do a little chip in there, but Gronk could block. He could do everything a tight end, old school tight end could do, and everything offensively that you would want from a player. He was just a transcendent. I think I compare him to, if we're talking about other sports, I compare it to Shaq, that he was just unstoppable. When he was at his peak, there was no stopping him, because he wasn't as elusive as Travis Kelce, but he could move. He was dancing bear. He was, you couldn't get him down. He'd go through, you throw three people at him, he'll go through them all. It was somebody, just a force of nature. And I think that Travis Kelsey's on his way to surpassing him, but I'm not ready to give it up just yet because just even when we saw the matchup in the Super Bowl, we saw Kelsey versus Gronk, and we saw who got the better of who. Realistically, Gronk, Gronk, even that was already Gronk way past it. Gronk in his prime, I think no one touches Gronk in his prime. I think the only thing Kelsey has on Gronk is longevity. Is that Kelsey is able to stay a little bit more healthier over a long period of time. But if we're taking incremental, like we're taking like this season Gronk versus this season Kelsey, the peak Gronk versus peak. I don't even have to think. I don't even have to think about that. I'm taking Gronkowski. Not even. I don't even have to think about it. Absolutely not. He's just a monster. But it's not. I'm not gonna sit here and completely put down Travis Kelsey. Travis Kelsey is the top 3 tight end no matter what. There's no doubt. He's fighting. He's right now. I have him at 2 or 3. Whoever you want to throw in there, but he's in that top 3 range. But at this moment right now, I'm not ready to give it up for Gronk because he's just the most dominant thing I've ever seen in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair because for a large portion of my childhood, I had to watch Prime Gronk terrorize my team, along with Tom Brady. So I can remember just how good Gronk was, especially in his prime. It was a force to be reckoned with. And if you had told me I would see a tight end that even competing with them, I would have said, "Wow, that's unbelievable." And we're seeing the tight end position become more and more utilized, and we've seen a tight end now in Travis Kelsey who look, he might not, you're saying he's not, quite as good as prime Gronk. I think he's just right up there with him. I think he maybe even edges it out. And I think he does probably edge it out for me, which is why I'm taking him because of, what he can do once he catches the ball. I think, the point that you make, we know about as being a full tight end, including blocking. It's a fair point. Obviously the game has transitioned slightly, and the most important thing for a tight end, I would say now, maybe compared to when Gronk was first starting out. When Gronk was first starting out and Gronk was entering his prime, you had to be a good blocker and you had to be able to catch. And especially for a Bill Belichick coach team, you had to be able to block. You wouldn't have even been playing if you couldn't block. More so than the way football has transitioned to now, like you said, he's a 6'5" wide receiver. And that's a fair point, but it's just it just goes back to
It doesn't diminish how he is
no,
as a tight end. Yeah.
it just becomes hard to a certain extent to compare players because of different things that they had to do to contribute to their team. And it's just when you really break it down, I can say that you made a fair point considering the full tight end position, especially given the history of it. I'm more just maybe the proper thing that I would have said would be receiving tight end. Like you said you think he's the greatest receiving tight end as well. I tend to agree with that. But I think by the time Kelsey hangs up his cleats,
When Kelsey's done, I
it's
think
not going to be a
it's gonna be
debate.
a very really hard to even make a debate out of it anymore. But you know you're just gonna really because you won't be able to have stats anymore really to back it up no more. Because I mean Kelsey's just gonna take every almost
Every
other
record
than other than like maybe what
and
Super
rings.
Bowls that he's probably not gonna and
Yeah, no,
yeah and
Kelsey's not
rings and
going to
stuff
catch
he's
Gronk.
probably not gonna get. Yeah, the probably not, but, like, when it comes to individual stats and stuff like that, it's not gonna be close. Really, all you're gonna have is, like, that one, like, "Oh, like, who would you choose on their day?" And, you know, I think at a certain point, you do have to give it up even though because it's, like, after so many, seasons of Kelsey doing this over and over and over again because, you can get those old heads being like, "Oh, this random guy in the 1980s, in his best day, he's better than anybody." It's like, "Okay, chill out," It's like,
You got to take
if
Shannon
Kelsey
Sharp
does
over
this,
both.
take Shannon Sharp over both right now. But, and if he keeps doing this over and over again, it's gonna be no doubt. I mean, it's not gonna really be much of a conversation. But that's why I said I'm at this moment right now, I'm still not ready to give it up.
And no, it's a fair argument to have, and I think it's a debate that is going to be had for many years to come because we already know Gronk and his legacy and what he was, and Kelsey's continuing to build his legacy, and we know he's going to continue to be a force to be reckoned with as long as he stays healthy. And he seems to be pretty decent at staying healthy. I'll give him credit to that,
Yeah, yeah.
considering how injury plagued Gronk was to a certain
Just it's
extent.
just how they played as well, because I think Kelsey's a little bit more finesse. Like when he has to go through somebody, he'll go through somebody, but he's a little bit more like he'll dance around. He's got amazing footwork. With
Yeah,
Gronk, he was a wrecking ball. He was literally, that's what he was. He
he
was
was
the
impossible to
sledgehammer.
tackle.
Like that was what Gronk was never playing on the side of caution. It's like he's going head first, shoulder first, spine first, like everything he's doing. Caution out the window, it's gone. And people had to change how they tackled him. Like they'd go for his knees, they destroy his knees. It's just how it was, because I mean, Gronk had the thing that you're gonna have to do something special to tackle Gronk. So players had to adjust how they tackled him, and a lot of that led to him getting hurt a lot.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the only way I could think of to tackle him. I mean, if you hit Gronk in the upper body, you ain't tackling him. It's just
It's
what it
not it's
is.
not working. It's not gonna work. But you know, I think that wraps up for that one. But with week 12 coming up, we usually do this at the beginning of the episode, but we moved it towards the later due to the World Cup and everything. But I think it's time for us to get into our week 12 predictions.
It is, yeah.
And so
Our
I'm
week 12
I'm gonna
pick'em.
let you take the lead of this one like you always do. So go
Yeah.
at it.
So, you've already introduced it very well. So let's just get straight into it. Week 12, NFL pick'em. Let's go. Bills versus Lions. Give me the Bills.
Got the Bills.
Giants versus Cowboys. Give me the Cowboys.
Come on, Cowboys.
Pats versus Vikings. Give me the Vikings to rebound.
I'll take the Vikings. Yeah.
Texans versus Dolphins. I got the Dolphins.
Dolphins.
Bengals versus Titans. It's going to be a close game, but I got the Titans.
I got the Bengals.
Broncos versus Panthers. I got the Broncos.
I got the Broncos.
Bears versus Jets. I got the Bears.
I got the Jets.
Oh, my. Falcons versus Commanders. I got the Commanders.
I got the Falcons.
Bucks versus Browns. I got the Bucks.
I got the Bucks.
Ravens versus Jags. I got the Ravens.
Ravens.
Raiders versus Seahawks. I got the Seahawks.
I got the Seahawks.
Chargers versus Cardinals. I got the Chargers on this one.
I got the Chargers.
Saints versus 49ers. I got the 49ers.
Got the 49ers.
Rams versus Chiefs. I got the Chiefs.
Oh, God. I got the Chiefs.
Packers versus Eagles. I got the Eagles.
I got the Eagles.
And then Steelers versus Colts. I got the Colts.
I got the Steelers.
So we had a couple of different picks in there.
A couple of them. Most of them the same. It's hard. We're not going to have very much differences of, Packers, Eagles, or Rams, or Chiefs, or even Saints or 49ers. But,
No, definitely not.
there's a couple that, I think 50-50 games. Like the ones I
Nah,
can think
yeah,
of, like Steelers, Colts, that could be a 50-50.
for sure.
Chargers, Cardinals, I think that could be a pretty close game. That was one I had to think about. Seahawks, Raiders, possibly. Seahawks would have been pretty bad. Broncos and Panthers could be a close game. I was
It
thinking
will
the
be.
Panthers,
I was
but
thinking because the
yeah,
Broncos are so bad.
I was thinking the Panthers. Broncos are so horrible. Bengals, Titans, that one. I was thinking a
That's gonna
little
be a
bit.
good
I'd be
one.
thinking,
I was so tempted to
you
pick the
know,
Bengals, but I just trust that Tennessee Titan defense led by Mike Vrabel, who we talked about earlier. I just trust him to be able to
yeah,
get it done.
yeah. The Bengals know a thing or two about beating the Titans, so I'll take the Bengals and I'll take Joey B. And I think that was the only other close one. I think the Patriots could be a little spicy for the Vikings, but I think the
I
Vikings
agree
will
with
tough
that.
it out. And other than that, I don't think that there's any other one that is kind of
Yeah,
on your
I would,
radar.
this week is going to be a bit of a snooze fest. I would say it's not really too many
Not a
crazy
lot of games
matchups
that
or anything like that.
I'm biting at the bit. I think I'll probably Yeah, I mean, we'll always like keep an eye on a lot of these games, but there's not like one that I'm gonna definitely like, put on the big screen TV and that I'm watching. Like
Yeah,
maybe like
obviously those
I don't even
Thanksgiving Day
know.
games are gonna be getting watched, but
Yeah, it's gotta be.
yeah,
But
for me, my game I'm most looking forward to is that Thanksgiving Day Giants Cowboys game because I think it's gonna be a good
yeah,
game. But
it's
I
gonna
mean,
be basically Dak versus Cooper Rush because Cooper Rush beat that team, and now you're gonna be expecting Dak to beat it. So it's
yeah,
gonna be interesting, which I suppose he's going to because Cowboys are playing really good.
yeah, no, 100%. But one game in particular, we're not
Oh
gonna
God.
fully go in depth into it, but you picked the Jets, I picked the Bears. There is one reason and one reason
Oh
only
God.
why I picked the Chicago Bears to win this game, and we'll get your thoughts on it. Zach Wilson, he's getting all the media scrutiny. He absolutely let the team down last game against the New England Patriots. Only was able to put up 3 points. Ultimately, that was a game that they needed to win. Ultimately, now they have fallen back down into last place in the ever so tough AFC East division, which is basically a heavyweight boxing match at this point. Jesus Christ, all four teams are pretty damn good. But Zach Wilson, my God, you are the worst quarterback in the NFL. The worst. Might be worse than Davis Mills. Look, last season, 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. It wasn't right. It wasn't time to write you off completely. It wasn't time. He had a 55% completion percentage, which isn't good. 2,334 yards. Not great by any stretch. This season, it was time to switch the narrative. He might be coming alive. Well, this is Zach Wilson's version of coming alive. 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 55% completion percentage, and so far 1,279 yards. Woo! He's done it. He's came alive, and he has been absolutely terrible. Like I kind of expected, Zach Wilson, I knew he was not good. What was most telling last week against the New England Patriots, who they have a good defense, led by Bill Belichick, the greatest coach of all time, in my opinion. Look, I don't care if you have God himself as the defensive coordinator of the New England Patriots. You cannot get 2 yards in the second half. 2 yards. 2 yards in the second half. Look, they averaged 2.77 inches per play in the second half. 2.77 inches. That's unheard of. I've never even. It's unbelievable. How could you be this bad? How? This guy is absolutely terrible. He's holding this Jets team back because the Jets, they have a pretty solid team everywhere else except for the quarterback position. Zach Wilson is so bad. He should be out of the league. At this point, he shouldn't even be in the XFL. He should not even be in the Canadian Football League. Go back to where you came from, BYU. Go back to Utah and live a nice life because you are not a quarterback anymore. This guy is not good. He's going to be out of the league. If the Jets do not move on from Zach Wilson after this season, I'll be absolutely shocked. And as if he could make the matters any worse. And believe me, it's hard to get much worse than 2.77 inches per play. But he managed to do it. Because in the post-game press conference, they give him a layup question, basically giving him the free opportunity to take accountability. And what does he do? He says he did not let the defense down. If 2.77 inches is not letting the defense down, and I don't know what is. This defense for the Jets gave up 3 points, and then basically they had a punt return, but the defense didn't really give that up. So they gave up 3 points, and they lost the game. It's an absolutely pathetic quarterback performance, and it's an absolutely pathetic offensive performance, and I'll be interested to see what you have to say because this is undefendable. This is undefendable.
I can only compare this. If there's people out there trying to defend this Zach Wilson performance, it's almost like being the lawyer that got assigned Jeffrey Dahmer, man. It's like there is no defense. I mean, what can you do, man? It's like I saw Zach Wilson was making Jets fans cry. They were crying because how bad he's been playing. Like this, like I I thought, I never thought Zach Wilson was this life changer. I thought he was just an average quarterback, but to to what he's been, to what I've seen, it's just like this Jets team is winning in spite of Zach Wilson. Even when he was hurt, like when he was hurt, people were like, "Oh, when Zach Wilson comes back, this is gonna be better." It's gotten worse. It's like
Gotten worse.
realistically, he should not start next game. Realistically, you play the backup. I don't care who you play. Like
Just
what
Joe Flacco.
Elijah Moore? Are you mad at wide receiver? Put him at damn quarterback. Who gives a shit? I saw Elijah Moore actually post a picture on his story of just him throwing the football around. Get him in there, man. I think
Bro.
anything has to be better. Anything has to be better at this point because like shit. There's nothing we can say. I mean, like he's making the fans cry, man. It's not even anger no more. It's just sorrow. This is just horrible. Like it's like Zach Wilson's taking their souls, and you know I think there is nothing you can really do. You have to get rid of him. You have to do something. Like you can't even give this guy away. You can't. You're gonna have to pay somebody to take him from you, or you're just gonna have to terminate his contract and send him home. Just send him home. Realistically, man,
That's
it's
the
like
best option. I mean, anything to get him
I
off the team.
send him back to college. I mean, like, there's nothing you can do because you're holding this Jets team back. This Jets team is pretty good. It's not bad, but
Not bad at all.
it's playing with like a 2,000-pound noose tied around his neck and is trying to drag this Zach Wilson dead body around. It's like you got to cut your losses. It's over. I mean, it's you've given it time and you've given him time, but it's not changing. I don't think he's gonna flip the script.
Picking Zach Wilson over Justin Fields might be the
It's a good,
worst
it's a good
draft
pick.
move I've ever even heard of at this point. I mean, the fact that this guy was the number 2 overall pick. I mean, my God, my God,
It's
like there's
good.
like it's absolutely pathetic. And it's look, if the Jets want to keep him, be my guest because it'll just make it easier for my Dolphins to be able to continue to dominate. But being a neutral observer of football, there's just no way. There's no way the Jets will do it. Robert Saleh, he's a smart football coach. He knows deep down that Zach Wilson is holding the team back. I mean, you don't have to be an NFL coach to figure that out. I mean, you don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking. You don't have to be that type of guy to know that Zach Wilson is absolutely terrible and he's holding the team back. I mean, they got to find a way to get rid of him. And I 100% agree with your point. He shouldn't even be starting next game. Joe Flacco should be the starter against these Bears. He should be. Like, is Joe Flacco washed? Is he good? He's washed. Yes, he is washed. And no, he's not particularly good. But he's better than
It
Zach
doesn't
Wilson.
matter. It
He
doesn't
is better.
matter.
Anything is better. 2.77 inches. It's like what? Unheard of. 2.77 inches. And that's the reason why I continue to harp on that. It's just because it's so dumbfounding. It's so unbelievable. It's one of those stats that it comes around once in a blue moon, and it's like, what is this real? It's real. And I had the honor of watching that game on CBS. It was on TV. Because I was rooting for the Patriots to win that game, and oh my, I mean, it was just an absolutely pathetic performance. And Mac Jones did not look much better, but he's better than Zach Wilson. I mean, Mac Jones didn't look like
Yeah.
no world beater, but it's clear as day that Mac Jones is better than Zach Wilson. But that's a topic for another day to talk about Mac Jones because he's not looking good either. The Patriots might be needing to move on too. But the main reason why we're here, Zach Wilson is a fraud, continue to be a fraud. Get him out of there. And you were ironically defending him, which is good to know because part of me thought that you were going to come on here and find a way to spin this and say that Zach
This
Wilson is
hockey
good.
is,
I thought it was
you
coming,
know.
bro, and I was going to be like, "There's no way,"
Uh,
but
I
I'm
mean,
glad you came to your
there's no
senses.
statistical category to defend this. This is
I swear,
I
I
can't even
thought you
say
would find
nothing,
a way.
man.
I thought you would find a way.
It's just there's nothing I can do. As much as I kind of, it was kind of for banter. I kind of was a Zach Wilson, supporter for banter, but it's just like it's like that one guy in that you knew in school that kept on making like these dark jokes, and it's like it's not good no more. It's like it's not working no more. You just can't like it's not good no more.
Yeah. No, yeah, no. His time, his ship has sailed as a quarterback in the NFL, and I'd be shocked if he even becomes a backup anywhere. I mean, like I said, he shouldn't even be in the XFL. So
They should get
it's
Cooper
not looking
Rush.
good. No, give me Cooper Rush.
Get Cooper Rush, dude. I mean, it's good.
If Cooper Rush was the quarterback of this Jets team, they're probably a perennial playoff team. I mean,
It probably probably the playoffs. But
but with all that being
so
said,
what did you say?
I thought I was saying, but to transition onto the ending here, but
Yeah.
I thought you had something final to say. But I
No,
think
no, no.
but all things considered, I think that pretty much wraps up what we got on the topics list. Another 3 hour episode. We've hit back to back 3 hours. Come
Back to
on.
back 3 hours.
We've done it again. We've hit the mark of 3 hours. So probably,
Wait,
like I said,
wait.
nobody's watching at this point. Just my mom.
I,
She laughed
yeah,
at
mom.
she laughed last week at me saying hi. So this is my
She
part
makes she
two of
makes
that.
it at 3 hours, man. I
Does
mean,
I'll give her credit to that.
that's
She's gonna
fair.
see
That's
she's
fair.
gonna see the Zach Wilson slander. But that's gonna
You,
be a
you
real
know
anyway.
what? One of these, I think when we start getting closer to 500, I'm just gonna randomly put like some type of gift card code at 3 hours just to see, and I bet you we're gonna have it for a while. Like it's gonna be for but your mom's disqualified. Your mom can't do it. She
No, she
can't
she
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 can't
she,
take
she
the
won't
gift.
even know how to redeem something like that.
No, but yeah, that's something we would probably do in the future. But yeah, because to be fair, I love watching podcasts. I can't even watch them for that long. It's like when
You
they
gotta
get to
break
that
it
long,
up. You break it up
I
into
take them in
segments.
increments. I take them in
Exactly, in
increments.
increments.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the
yeah.
beauty, and that kind of transitions into what I was going to say. It's the beauty of clips. We post lots of reels. We post like we're getting on our YouTube clip grind. We posted I think 6 clips from the last episode. For anybody that is, well, if you made it to this point, you don't really need to watch the clips because you've watched the whole thing.
You watch
But
the whole thing.
tap into the clips anyway, and if you missed a segment, you skip to the end because you wanted to see what we were saying. Watch some of the clips because we're going to be grinding them out. We're going to make plenty of reels. We got some YouTube clips coming through. We're going to continue to try to run it up. Like we said in the intro, we're on the grind. We're on to come up. We're trying to pump out as much content as possible. And, with all that being said, anything you wanted to say before we get out of here?
Other than doubling down on the fact that we're constantly pumping out clips on all platforms. We really, really want to hear from you guys. Anybody that has to say anything negative, positive, we don't care. We like seeing it all because that's the beauty of sports. That's why we all watch sports. We all watch sports because we all have opinions on things, and we want to say our opinions and we want to be heard. So that's what we're about. We want, no matter what you say, we're going to respond and we're going to see it. Even if you're calling, us stupid for, maybe you're that one guy that thinks Zach Wilson is him. Maybe you're that one guy. Please come forward and we just want to talk to you. I want to dissect your brain, dude. I want to
I would love to
understand.
know. I would love to
I
know what
love to
statistic you're
I
pulling out
love
the
to
hat.
know what I'm not seeing exactly. Maybe I need a new TV or something. But
I mean, I was getting
you know,
called a fraud for not picking Croatia and stuff. Say, hey, I hold
yeah,
my hands up.
I I pick Qatar. I mean, it's not looking good. But that's what the beauty of
That's the
sports.
beauty of
That's
it.
why we get together. We're able to talk. We're able to talk about it for 3 hours because it's just what it's how it is, and we're so we're given a chance to, especially with the World Cup around, to cover it and just spread out and try and have more connections with people we never met, we never ever meet in our lives. We just
Yeah.
like spreading the beauty of the game.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, by the time next episode rolls around, we're gonna have so many more games to talk about, so many more storylines to talk about, and we'll have another week of NFL to talk about. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this next week of sports plays out. We'll be keeping a close eye on it because next episode we'll be talking about it. So if you got anything you want to see us discuss, leave that in the comments down below. Leave your thoughts on anything we did talk about in the comments down below. And if you did make it this far, leave while you're leaving a comment, hit the subscribe button. You know, like I said, we're on the grind, and we're trying to get to 1,000, and then ultimately even further than that. But you know, right now we're at 337, so we appreciate all the support. Any final words, G?
No, I'm all good.
Well, with all that being said, man, thank y'all for checking out episode 29 of the Shooter Straight podcast. We appreciate the continued support. We're going to continue to run it up. With all that being said, I'm your co-host, Zach.
I'm your co-host, G.
And we'll see y'all next time, man. Peace.
Peace.